Going all in on something must take a lot of conviction.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
How many chairs are you sitting on right now? How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
One.
Are you all in on the chair? You put on one pair of glasses, you've got one pair of AirPods, you're looking at me through one screen. That's a one microphone. Like, you trust it? Is that conviction? Is that conviction? How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
One.
Are you all in on the chair?
One.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now? If you're a rational individual, when you use knives, do you have copper knives, wooden knives, steel knives, aluminum knives, rubber band knives, diamond knives, because you're afraid to commit to the right knife? It's a tool. It seems kind of scary. Why don't you diversify? Why don't you use 10 microphones? The point really is, things in your life, did you drive in 10 cars at the same time or one car at one time? Do you drive down one street? Aren't you afraid that you're driving down one street? Do you think a different way? You know? So my point really is, how many chairs are you sitting on right now?
One.
Are you all in on the chair?
One.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
All right. If you guys don't understand this by now, there is no second best, as Michael Saylor loves to tell us. Lots going on yet again. Again, NVIDIA crushed earnings. I think that saved markets. Then we got notice of tariffs going away. I don't actually think that's true. We'll talk about that. We've got public Bitcoin companies buying Bitcoin en masse. I think that's one of the big drivers right now with the Bitcoin price. And again, we're getting closer to 110 again. If you look at the chart in the bottom corner, you'll see that it is doing well and that we're still waiting for takeoff. Even though we did have proxies got butchered yesterday. Mara down 9.61%, GME down almost 11, which is an actual proxy now. CleanSpark down 7.61. So a lot of things retraced. Even MicroStrategy was down 2.15. MetaPlanet was up almost 3%. I do believe it could go down a little bit today just because, again, it held up so well yesterday. But I do think it'll go up into the latter part of the day. But we'll talk about why MetaPlanet is so much better than GameStop. Because I do think you need to make comparisons with these investments. And it's just way better. And Tesla to release Robotaxi on June 12th, but actually they started a month ago as far as deploying and have had no interventions and no issues. All amazing stuff. Chat, good morning, everybody. Niraj, why is MicroStrategy down even though Bitcoin is going up? I think it's hard to say that. People say that, but I think they don't spend enough time looking at the actual charts. So I think what you have to do, and again, I think you got to go back a little ways here. I think what you do is you go back to like April 7th. That's the big day, right? That's the day where we started to bounce. And you look at the fact that MicroStrategy is up, even now, in pre-market, almost 60% since April 7th. And then I think if we do that same thing with Bitcoin in the bottom right corner over here, and we go back to the depths of the April 7th bear market, we can see that Bitcoin is up about 46%. And so MicroStrategy, is it really drastically outperforming? No. But instead of 46%, you got 57. So again, I do think it will 2x. I think that's pretty much a given, but it's okay. You got ebbs and flows in markets. And it's still, I mean, at the very least, it's keeping up with Bitcoin, actually excelling it, right? Gary Black sold all his Tesla. Yeah, I know. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I sold Tesla too. I got out of my 2X and I sold some Tesla to buy the MetaPlanet dip. But my thesis is a little bit different, right? My thesis is that these are going to be faster horses, and then I'm going to make a lot more money with them over the short term, which could end up being wrong. It's probably not going to be. But Gary Black, I think I don't even think he's seen the latest version of FSD, and it's just kind of sad that he's going to be missing out a lot. I do think this though. I do think MicroStrategy is probably nearing the bottom if it already hasn't hit it, and so I do think that that's going to start going up. I think Bitcoin's going to start going up. I think all these things are en route. If you guys aren't paying attention, you got to listen to the Bitcoin conference. There's so many good. I posted the day 3 video today. There's so many good conversations and dialogues going on. I spent all yesterday listening to it, and I fell in love with Bitcoin again. I mean, it's just when you hear so many different companies, like Square was talking yesterday about how they're all in on Bitcoin and how all their terminals are going to be able to allow you to be able to buy pay with Bitcoin, and then you have those same kind of things coming from all of these other companies, all of them, all the terminal companies, like this, all of them are doing the same kind of thing. And you just start to realize, not even just that, all of it. There's a stablecoin conversation. I'll probably play a little bit of that after this Ryan Cohen GME one, because I want to show you the stark difference between like the response of Ryan Cohen after buying Bitcoin and then companies like MetaPlanet that are very dedicated to purchasing more and more and more. And I would include Saylor in that list too. And definitely MicroStrategy, right? You gotta include the man, Michael Saylor. But yeah, there were so many good discussions. Arthur Hayes, he had a great conversation, even though he's very pro-CCP and anti-Trump. I do think that some of the things that he said are very true, and I want to talk about that. There were just so many good ones, so many good conversations. Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, talking about Bitcoin bonds and talking about getting rid of their bit license that has plagued New York City for a long time in order to try and be, one of the most positive places for crypto and Bitcoin in the United States. Would be a drastic shift from everything that's went on in New York. And it was a beautiful conversation. I felt like I grew up down south, and I used to go to Black Baptist churches every once in a while. And you got your regular Baptist church, and then you got a black one. And it's just a different level of getting preached at. I felt like that with Eric Adams yesterday, and it was beautiful. It brought me back to a happy place. But again, we got a lot to talk about. I should probably get to it. He had what, 3,200 shares? Yeah. Gary Black had 3,200 shares. I think Gary Black had 3,200 shares, and ARK Invest has like 2.1 million. So who are you going to listen to? Who's more vested in the interest of Tesla? Gary Black or ARK Invest? Cookie Monster says MSTR looks like it's sitting above good support. Yeah, I think actually this is the bounce zone. I really do think that. Simone, good morning, Jesse. Good to see you back on X. We missed you. Yeah, I missed being there. On that same note, though, guys, next week, actually starting Sunday, I'm going on vacation, and I'll be off until Thursday. So it's going to be quiet again. I've been retired for 5 years, and I haven't actually done a lot of vacations. I went to Panama. I've done a few things, but I haven't done a lot. So I'm trying to do a little more of that this year. So there might be intervals where I'm taking a few days off here and there. You'll just have to deal. I'm sorry. I gotta enjoy life a little bit too for my own personal health. I've got to get out and move too. But I'm still keeping up to date with everything and working really hard behind the scenes. Ash says M2M crew. Jesse's right. All of the other channels get so many more likes if we appreciate the channel and his analysis, then show some love. I appreciate that, Ash. Thank you very much. I have faith in Saylor, so I'm balls deep in MSTR, says Niraj. Awesome. Yeah, so again, I want to talk about MetaPlanet, GME, Bitcoin, U.S. economy. We just got so much to talk about. The tariffs, there's so much to talk about. We'll go over all of it. And it's a decent economic calendar today as well. Let's just look here. So at 7:30, we got GDP growth rate, corporate profits, the GDP price index. We got jobs data. We got core PCE prices. We got GDP sales, Today's going to be a pretty heavy real consumer spending. And that's just all at the 7:30 block. And then at 9 o'clock, we got pending home sales. Nobody cares about that. I'll probably be done by like shortly after open, I think, today. We'll probably close out, and then you guys can hop over and say hi to Amit or something if you want to do more. But so we got a lot on the economic calendar. But real quickly, before we go too far down the rabbit hole, I want you to listen to Ryan Cohen's response to his purchases with Bitcoin. Tell me if this is inspiring. This is why the stock was down 11% yesterday. So I want to be very clear, and then we'll talk about the differences between them and MetaPlanet as a comparison. Here we go.
You raise some money that you might use to buy Bitcoin.
Really cool.
I guess the $1 million question that everyone wants to know is: has GameStop bought Bitcoin?
We have bought Bitcoin.
Ooh. Okay, how much?
We currently own
Note that the interviewer is way more excited than Ryan Cohen.
4,710 Bitcoins.
Let's go. So tell us about that. Why did GameStop decide to buy Bitcoin?
It was, if the thesis is correct, then Bitcoin and gold as well can be a hedge against global currency devaluation and systemic risk. Bitcoin has certain unique advantages compared to gold. The portability aspect of it, it's instantly transferable across the globe, whereas gold is bulky and very expensive to ship. The authenticity, it's instantly verified via the blockchain. The storage, you can easily secure Bitcoin in a wallet, whereas gold requires insurance.
If I was high on weed, I would actually be more excited about Bitcoin. I'm not sure what he's on. Tranquilizers?
And it's very expensive. There's the scarcity element of it as well. There's a fixed supply of Bitcoin, whereas with gold, certain technological advances, the supply of gold is still uncertain. And then ultimately, there's the asymmetric upside. Gold is a more mature market. It's
there's more to this, but just keep listening.
It's roughly around 20
Got about a minute and a half
20 trillion of market capitalization, whereas Bitcoin today is about 2 trillion. And if the thesis is correct, then ultimately gold becomes Bitcoin becomes digital gold.
He's talking about gold for a second, but now he's back to Bitcoin. Okay. If the thesis
Adopted, then there's more upside. But we'll see what happens.
So inspiring. Look at this. So if there might be more upside, we'll see what happens. How is anybody inspired by the message that this man is giving about his Bitcoin purchases? How is anybody inspired by this? So again, I know there's a lot of people that rushed into GameStop in order to be able to get the next MicroStrategy. Honestly, I would pick MicroStrategy over GameStop based on this communication. And it's not done yet. I'll give it another second here. It's still got a minute and a half, and it's not much better. But again, this is not inspiring to me in any way. And then you have MetaPlanet, and we'll talk about them in a second.
Nobody has a crystal ball, but
nobody has a crystal ball. It's so inspiring.
That's the current thesis.
That's the current thesis. Might change in the future.
Well, congratulations. And I feel like GameStop is the ultimate meme stock and Bitcoin is the ultimate meme money. And if you combine the two, you get a meme super cycle. So, you know, what's next for GameStop and Bitcoin? Are you going to buy more Bitcoin? Is this the next MicroStrategy, the next MetaPlanet, or even better?
We're not going to call our shots in advance.
So Dylan LeClaire already said we will call our shots in advance and has done that with $71 million in additional funding to buy more Bitcoin.
For obvious reasons, but GameStop is following GameStop's strategy. We're not following anyone else's.
So that we're not following a Bitcoin strategy. We're not following Saylor's strategy or MetaPlanet's strategy. We're following our own strategy, and we don't really believe in Bitcoin that much. We just bought it because people kept annoying the shit out of us.
Strategy.
Okay. So to summarize, embrace the GameStop theory. I like it. So final question.
So awkward.
The world is watching right now. Everyone at the conference is watching this interview. We probably have 10 million, 50 million people on the live stream. What is the message you'd like to send the global Bitcoin
Here we go,
community
guys.
and
The big
everyone who's
message.
watching this interview right now?
No pressure. No pressure. Don't follow GameStop. Make your own decisions independently. It's my message. Just do whatever you're comfortable with.
Don't trust, verify.
I'm sorry. That was the worst. The worst. So again, if you're like all GME, like, oh my God, GME is going to replace MetaPlanet. That's the big move. I'm going to make so much money because they're buying Bitcoin and they're going balls deep. This should be a very, very clear indication to you that this man doesn't actually know anything about Bitcoin, doesn't even know if he believes that it's going to work out, and is not interested in buying more unless forced to. So there's nothing exciting here for me, guys. I'm sorry. You can have that. You could be excited. I'm not excited, but feel free to be yourself. I do want to watch more though. So I wanted to talk about the stablecoin discussion. And this one, I loved this one yesterday. There's so many good ones. And today I can't wait. When I get off of this, I'm jumping over to the Bitcoin conference again as soon as it's available. And I'm going to be listening in all day on everything I'm doing. I've got more work to do around the house, a bunch of projects. The house is looking awesome. I'm very stoked. I got my truck all together. I got like a new front rack. I got my LED light bar. I got to take some pictures of it and show you guys. It's looking pretty badass. But I'm getting a lot done. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to be jamming out to this all day. I posted a link. You got to watch this stuff. Let's real quickly listen to this guy. I don't even know who he is. Is Ross speaking today? I think he is. We also have potentially Nigel Farage, who could be the next prime minister of the UK. As much as people are pushing to the right, I think it's very possible, talking about how they need to have a Bitcoin reserve as well. Pakistan talked about how they need a Bitcoin reserve yesterday. There's just so much good stuff happening. Ross is a fucking great dude, and I'm happy he's out. I can't wait to hear what he has to say after being in prison for so many years for creating a platform that allowed, again, some bad things happened on it, but really, really just getting punished, I think. It's going to be nice to see what his take is. He seems like a pretty solid dude. So I'm very excited to hear about that. Real quickly, though, I want to play this clip. This is a few minutes, maybe like 5-6 minutes, talking about stablecoins and how that is. There's a stablecoin pill to get people to being orange pilled. And I got to say, guys, with all the stuff going on, this tariff talk, all the judicial stuff, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, there's a lot going on right now, okay? There's a lot going on. Whether or not the president is going to be able to get everything he needs done in a fiscally responsible way with the way that the House and just Congress in general work. I don't know if it's possible. I'm such an optimistic person, but I really don't know if we're going to do the things that we need to do. I look at what Elon tried to do with Doge, and it's still in effect, and there's still good things happening. They just got access to the treasury here. It looks like a judge approved that. So that's great stuff. But I just don't know if they're going to be able to cut the waste, the fraud, and the abuse the way that they should be able to, because at every corner they're being sued by some judge who's not even in a jurisdiction to be able to do any of this stuff. But it's judicial lawfare, and it's not just happening here. I mean, it happened in El Salvador. It's happening currently in Argentina. The Argentinian president Javier Milei wasn't able to get rid of their public broadcasting TV show. So since he wasn't able to do that, he changed the content to where they're showing the Bitcoin cartoons. I don't know if you guys have seen them, explaining how Bitcoin works and a bunch of other stuff. So he's changed the content on it because the judicial lawfare has prevented him from being able to really do anything to get rid of it and get rid of the waste and the spending and the government messaging that's actually opposing his government. So I don't know. There's just a lot going on in this day and age. I feel like you have to own Bitcoin if you want the out. If you want the safety mechanism, I do believe that Tesla, robotics, autonomy, AI, all these things are going to create massive amounts of disinflation and deflation, outright deflation. It's going to be really beneficial for society. It's going to cause some chaos too, but I believe you got to bet on that, and then I believe you got to bet on Bitcoin because governments are hard nut to crack. So let's listen real quickly. Let's listen to how stable coins will get people to be orange pilled all across the world. Real quick here. Let me slow this down.
Shopkeeper in Nairobi saving her paycheck in USDC.
Because I listen
in
to stuff
effect,
fast.
indirectly buying US debt. That's one of the most important things here. So the world is absorbing US debt with stablecoins. And when you look at what the stablecoin issuers, and you stack them in comparison to other countries, you take all of them, Tether, Circle, stack them in comparison to other countries. Stablecoin issuers rank roughly 19 in terms of purchasing US debt. That means they're buying more debt than Germany and South Korea. Now, as I remind you, I said 1.25 trillion projected in 2030. So when that happens, that means that stablecoin issuers will be the biggest buyers of US debt. But again, today, people need dollars. Tomorrow, people need Bitcoin. And I know you all know why. I personally, when I look at what the Trump administration is doing, I'm very happy. They've embraced our industry. Vice President Vance's speech was amazing today. So because they've embraced our industry, I love it. With Doge, the efforts with Doge is great. But some of you know about the big, beautiful bill, and I understand it's not finished yet, but in the House at the 11th hour, pork was added, extra spending was added. So you have to question, does some of the bureaucrats in Washington have the fiscal discipline for this country?
No, I don't think they do. There's too many rhinos. There's too many Democrats. There's, again, like everybody, it's just, we've created such a horrific bureaucracy. I don't think we do have the fiscal discipline to fix the problem. I think that buying Bitcoin as a reserve asset, I think the stuff that Scott Besson is working on, I think the things that Doge is trying to do are all going to be beneficial and helpful and save us. I don't think Congress is going to.
We know with Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. So this is what I call the Trojan horse strategy. We lead with what the people need today so that we can deliver what they will need tomorrow. And we know that's Bitcoin.
BPBG.
So you want the next billion Bitcoiners? They're right here. And we see it. We see it all across the world with our customers. In fact, 70% of our customers are outside.
One sec. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Let me fix that. I 100% agree with the messaging that he's talking about. I think that, again, Bitcoin has grown a lot, and I think the way that we get it to grow even more while helping the United States with our debt obligations. And Safety Namus had a discussion yesterday, but he's so anti-American, I can't even listen to him. He's anti-Israel, anti-Jew. Again, part of it is just probably demographics and where he was born, right? But he's so anti-American, it makes him hard to listen to. Arthur Hayes is anti-American too, but at least he's somebody who gives me some valuable content. And don't get me wrong, when I say that, I loved Seyfedin Ammous's book, The Bitcoin Standard. It was fucking brilliant. But sometimes you have to separate a great book from a person who is like delusionally biased on other topics. But I do think that this, again, having the biggest buyers of with the Genius Act and the other stuff, the market structure bills that are going to be coming through in the United States, I think this is going to force, the stablecoin legislation will force companies like Tether to own much larger percentages of U.S. treasuries than they own right now. I want to say Tether is only like 8% of their holdings are like U.S. treasuries. I could be wrong. Somebody let me know if I am. Feel free to grok it. But I think that number, the percentage wise, will have to increase dramatically under any kind of legislation that's passed in regard to the stablecoin stuff. And so I think like when the Genius Act passes and when this market structure bill passes and then the big, beautiful bill will pass, it's probably going to be big and not as beautiful as it should be because it's going to be just full of so much pork. But I mean, it'll help our investments, just not our kids' futures. But I think all these things are just going to lead everybody into rushing into dollars. It's awesome that we are focused on being the digital coin of the world, whether it's store of value or whether it's currency. And this is going to usher people in. And he gives a number of great reasons why.
Of the United States. Because for them, the wallet is no longer an app. The wallet is a bank branch. It's a passport. It's a freedom machine. The next billion people will not be signing up for a bank. The next billion people will be downloading a wallet. But what needs to happen is that wallets need to have to abstract all of the complexity and technology away. That means no complicated 12-word secret phrases, no crypto addresses, no L1, L2, who cares? It should be, I want to send $20 to my mom.
I just want to say he's 100% spot on, and Bitcoin maxis are going to hate me for this, but just like the internet today, most people don't know what the OSI model is. They don't know what the TCP/IP layers are. They don't know all the structure of how packets are taken from what they're doing on their computer and then encapsulated again, and then going out over the internet and then being opened up in order to be communicated to people on the other side of the fence. People don't know how these things work, okay? And the next leg up in adoption, it just needs to be as simple as, I want to send some money to my mom, and I want it to be cheap, and I don't want it to be locked down by the government. I just want to be able to communicate money and not pay 25% in fucking fees because it's in a country that's really hard to get money across from the banking system because everybody takes their share. You can't have that. And so, like, this is the big thing with stable coins that's going to help so much with adoption in the future. And again, the more people that adopt these stable coins when they're US backed, the more they help keep our treasury yields down, which we're in desperate need of, pushing, again, 5% almost on the 30-year after the news about the tariffs yesterday. Again, everybody thought, oh, tariffs are going away. That's so great. Oh, well, now it puts a $250 billion budget deficit hole, and because of the fact that that's what we were looking at getting annualized in regard to tariffs. So it's making things worse, and it's hurting us even more. But again, stable coins can help with that. They can alleviate some of this pressure in the future. You think DN3 does well the next 2 days? I don't know. We'll talk about MetaPlanet more in a second.
I want to be able to buy groceries for my family. I want to save in dollars and be ready to swap for sovereignty when I'm ready. That's ultimately what this is about. Because we're not building for crypto natives anymore. We're building for the global mainstream.
Sean said, I don't get the stablecoin business model. If rates go down, they lose profits. Yeah, that's right. That's great, isn't it, though? Because, again, if rates go down, they lose profit percentage per transaction. But if rates are going down because there's more stablecoin adoption, then they're actually not losing profits at all, right? Because they're getting a larger base of people that use them and purchase them and that they're holding. And again, I don't think rates are going to go down a lot. I just think that this is a great way. This is probably in the next couple of years going to be the biggest purchaser of U.S. treasuries and bonds out of anybody on earth, any entity, whether it's a country or anything else. So if we want to keep our bond yields from going too high, we want this. And I don't think that Tether is going to be super upset about having even more adoption and more volume, even if rates come down a little bit. It's probably still going to be really good profit margins.
And they won't be signing up for banks. So because we have millions of customers all over the world, we have the fortune to be able to speak with them, have conversations with them. I want to share a story of one of our customers. So a father wrote into us, his father in Venezuela, and his son's name is Andres. And you know the political instability in Venezuela. You know the currency issues that they have. And so his son, Andres, built a crypto mining rig. He started mining crypto, and then he swapped it for dollars because that was his lifeline for his family. These stories are happening all over the world in millions. Again, we're fortunate to be able to have these conversations and learn what these people need. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I know for us, oftentimes, we can get really caught up in the yield. Oh, this token gets 30%, 40%. If you stake in this pool and mine in this pool, whatever. I have gotten caught up in it as well. But at the end of the day, the yield doesn't matter. It's the sovereignty that matters. And that's why we're here. That's why this is so important. So imagine a world with 8 billion wallets. And every wallet downloaded is actually a Bitcoin wallet. Every dollar saved is one swap away from sovereignty. And that's a world where that gives us one inevitable outcome. And that inevitable outcome is freedom. So the playbook is this. Start with something that people need every single day. Make it so incredibly simple. Dollars, stablecoin. Then we slide in Bitcoin behind the scenes so it's ready for when they need it. And then in doing that, we will empower the world.
Fucking love this presentation. That's 100% it. Again, we're kind of Trojan horsing people into the Bitcoin world by giving them stablecoin issuance. Yesterday, we had JD Vance say that Bitcoin is not a competitor against the US dollar. This is just all so perfect, guys. It's all so perfect. He sounds like he's preaching a sermon. You want to hear a real sermon, you need to listen to Eric Adams. That was a sermon. I'm going to jump over here real quick, though. And that was a beautiful conversation, too, yesterday, guys. This is the stuff, though, that I want you guys to understand. And again, we're going to play Arthur Hayes in a second. Arthur Hayes is going to be negative on Elon Musk. He's going to be negative on Trump. All these things. That's okay. Just ignore that part. It is what it is. Realize that this man is CCP, Communist China. Just realize that, and then you'll understand that his views on America and Trump and everything else. But he's right about a lot of what he's saying, and I want you guys to listen to that. And again, Eric Adams is another good one. I'm trying to give you guys some of the highlights. Tomorrow I'll probably do. I'm going to do this again. I think the market opened tomorrow since I missed Wednesday, so I'm trying to do at least 3 days a week. Again, next week off until I won't even be back until Thursday. So next week I'll probably do a Friday show, and that'll be it. But I want you guys to get some of the highlights of this conference because there's so many good things that are going on in it. And you need to know. But let's listen real quickly to Arthur Hayes talking about what's happening and why you need to own Bitcoin, because I do think he's fucking spot on. Victor says, if the blockchain group raises $10 billion to buy BTC, they would rock it or what? Yeah, oh, dude, there's so much money that's going into BTC. It's going to be absolutely insane. Victor said, I have 1,000 shares of ALTBG, 10 billion to buy BTC. Yeah, that's crazy. I know. MB says, Jesse, perhaps another thing that you have missed. TLT bounced on the October 2023 bottom. It did, and then it was down 0.43% yesterday, and then it's down 0.13% in pre-market today, and it's still sitting at some of the lowest levels that it's been at going back a decade. TLT does not look any better with the big, beautiful bill getting passed, with this weirdness with tariffs getting removed and leaving a budget hole, and yields going up on the 30 and the 10. TLT doesn't look at all remotely attractive to me right now. Can we talk SMLR? Yes, we'll do that. But first, we got to listen here to Arthur Hayes because this is Signal. Again, take it for what it's worth on some of the other things that he says about the administration and Elon Musk. But listen to the rest.
Already tracking above fiscal year 2024, which is already a record year for the deficit. Now, obviously, in the media, we've been talking a lot about how certain people, and we'll get to that person in a second, are going to rein in government spending by eliminating fraud and abuse. And so we talked about it for a while, and then the protagonist of this effort, the Doge, went missing, and we haven't heard from him in a while because it's bad politics. Every dollar that the government spends is going into somebody else's pocket. And if you're going to come out here and say we're going to cut trillions of dollars from the deficit, that's obviously going to impact a lot of people and businesses in an adverse fashion. And we saw sort of the negative reaction to this from the media, from individuals. And ultimately, I think the politicians realized, hey, this isn't great politics. Let's call in our attack dog, let him go off into the sunset and run his private company. But what that means is if they're not going to be able to cut the deficit meaningfully, how do you make the books balance? And recently, Scott Bessent has gone on a media tour and talked about how he's focused on growth. He's all in on growth. And so what
He's not fond of Bessent either. Really anybody.
does that mean if you're running a massive deficit? That means that you need to get nominal GDP above your cost of interest, which is very difficult to do unless you're going to up the amount of credit in the economy. So a lot of you in this room are American or spend a lot of time in North America. I have lived most of my adult life in Greater China. And when you live in China, you understand that GDP or growth is just an output of how much credit you want to put into the economy.
Now, that's fair, and that has been something that China's been doing for a long time, right? Just printing money like fucking crazy and pushing it out into the economy.
So we want to understand what the Trump administration, and I think any administration would do given these mathematical facts. We have to understand that this economy depends on credit. And so if you're willing to put more credit into the system, then you'll get any growth target that you want. So if Bessent says they want 6 or 7% nominal GDP growth, great. How much credit are you going to create?
And so here's the thing. I think he's right here. And he's going to give reasons why. He's going to talk about Fannie and Freddie Mac, or Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. He's going to talk about the supplemental leverage ratio. He's going to talk about a lot of mechanisms that the Treasury has available to it to kind of create an infinite money printer. And I do think that he's very negative on the administration, but he is telling the truth on some of the tools that they have available to them to be able to do exactly what he's talking about.
And we want to know how much credit they're going to create because ultimately that is what leads to Bitcoin outperforming every other asset in fiat terms. So how do we outgrow a 7% persistent deficit? What can they do? Usually the authorities blow another financial bubble. Maybe that's Bitcoin and crypto. A very accommodative stance from the politicians to say, hey, we want the crypto bros and girls to get very wealthy, pay capital gains taxes, spend a lot of money, and increase economic performance. They could encourage lending by the banking system to real-world economy. I call this QE for poor people in an essay that I wrote a few months back. And essentially, if the banking system, instead of doing financial engineering, takes its balance sheet and lends to ordinary companies, this produces jobs and economic growth. Now, the problem with both of these things is that there is inflation. Inflation is necessary to delever the balance sheet, and
he is right about this as far as like a monetary inflation where you're printing a bunch of money in order to be able to accomplish these goals. So he's right.
I know it's a dirty word in politics and economics, but inflation is necessary for the government to afford this massive debt pile that it has. So we are going to get inflation, and obviously people in this room understand that Bitcoin is the best hedge against that, but we need to spread this message around the world.
Now, I do want to say something real quickly, because Sean was mentioning this a second ago. Optimists will print GDP. It'll also be deflationary. So will full self-driving that's taking off in Austin. There's a lot of things that I find that people like Seyfedin Ammous, Lynn Alden, Arthur Hayes, they don't focus. Oh, we got data coming out in 1 minute. Awesome, thank you. But we'll jump in a second here and then get back to this. They don't talk about how deflation is being created through technological advancement. That's the kind of thing that you get from like a Jeff Booth with the price of tomorrow. So again, I just think it's really important that you understand that concept too, because these guys aren't talking about it, but it is very important. Let's look at what we're getting for economic data, and thank you for the segue there, Aaron. I appreciate you, sir. Victor said, I said a few months ago to my CEO that SAP was dead. 1 week, partner with Palantir. Yeah, Palantir had great news too. Palantir just continues to impress me, honestly. I sold out of that way too quickly. Cookie Monsters, I don't see how housing prices come down all that dramatically in a high inflation. That's probably true. All right, we got a bunch of data points. Let's see here. So we got GDP growth rate quarter over quarter, negative 0.2%. It looks like the forecast. Let me get these other things off the screen 1 second. I hate how the notifications come up on the right and block the data. It was forecast at negative 0.3, so that's slightly better. Corporate profits, negative 3.6, way lower than 5.9% consensus and 5.2 forecast. So that's taken a hit. But again, we knew that corporate profits will take a hit in regard to tariffs. They'll eat a lot of it. So the inflation doesn't get passed on to the end consumer in a dramatic fashion. They eat it. So that's not too much of a surprise. GDP price index quarter over quarter up 3.7%, right in line with expectations. Initial jobless claims, 240. That's slightly higher than the 230 that was consensus and forecast. Continuing jobless claims, it looks like 1,919 versus 1,890 and 1,907. So those are coming in slightly higher than expected. So jobs data is just a little bit weaker, but on the grand scheme of things, it's not too bad. We'll look at that in a second. Core prices, quarter over quarter, it looks like 3.4% versus 3.5 and 3.5. A lot of this data is pretty in line and not too crazy. Outside of corporate profits, just getting crushed. Let's look over here. So GDP sales, quarter over quarter, negative 2.9, lower than the negative 2.5 for consensus and forecast. Jobless claims 4-week average is 230K versus the 233 forecast and 231 from previous. So that actually looks a little bit better. You want to see the 4-week average doing all right. You want to see continuing jobless claims getting better. But again, they got a little bit worse. PCE prices quarter over quarter, 3.6%. That came in line. Real consumer spending quarter over quarter, 1.2 versus 1.8 and 1.8. So all in all, I'd say this data is a little bit weak. Let me real quickly, we'll just take a look at these. We'll actually jump into these data points and just see what they're looking like on the chart. So again, first negative read here, Q1 of 2025. Negative, first one since Q1 of 2022. So the growth rate was negative. That's kind of expected, though, for Q1. I mean, you really can't complain too much about that. Let me refresh here to where I have all the data points right here. Thank you to the 1,000 people that are here. If you could hit the like button, it is greatly appreciated, and it does help out a lot. All right, let's keep going. So corporate profits, quarter over quarter. So again, the Q1 data for GDP growth rate, weakest since the first quarter of 2022. Yeah. Quarter profits or corporate profits, let's see, negative 3.6. Let me see here. So that was a pretty steep drop. So again, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt some of the margins. We haven't seen it too bad so far, but we'll probably see some of that bleeding into Q2 here in regard to tariffs. So companies that were heavily impacted by this, again, we'll see some of that in Q2. GDP price, let me see where this is at. I mean, it's still just up and to the right. Jobs data, there's not really much to see here, I don't think. Again, if you go back like 3 years, is it higher? Yeah, it's a little bit higher. But again, I don't know. We had this doesn't, compared to COVID, if you just look at the COVID data, we're still looking at like record lows. So I don't know that the jobs data is really sending any signals right now. Jesse is in a holiday next week. Yes, I am. Yep, that's true. Also, Doge did a great job, but the fact that DC fought so hard to curb it. Yeah, well, the problem is they're not codifying any of the changes that Doge made, so that doesn't really help much at all. Let's look at prices, though. How are prices doing? So, again, a little bit of a tick up. But when we look at this over the period, I mean, it is high. It's artificially higher than it was before the pandemic. So this is showing a little bit of inflation. And if we look over at trueflation, again, we're back into the 2% range. But this is nothing to be worried about, really. There's just nothing. There's not a lot of signal here, I don't think. So I don't know. I don't know did the market do much? I don't think the market really cares. The data is just kind of like, I don't think the data really matters. I don't see anything crazy here. Outside of, again, corporate profits taking a little bit of a hit. Sales were a little bit weaker. Prices, again, prices are high, but they're actually were better than expected. I don't know. I don't see anything really too exciting here. And the consumer spending was a little bit weaker too. Let's just look and see what that looks like over the 5-year. I mean, it doesn't look too much different. If you look over here, this was Q2, but like, again, 1%, we're over here at 1.2. Over here in Q1 of 2022, 1%. And then in Q4, we were 1.2%. So really, I mean, 2022 was much weaker than what we saw more recently, or 2024 was building up into strength, and then 2025 was weak again because of probably a lot of what's going on. SMCI is up 3.5%. Yeah, it's up 3.72 right now. Again, chips are doing good. NVIDIA is up 5.54% in pre-market. We are seeing, it looks like, I don't know if MetaPlanet's up. I think it's probably down this morning, or at least the German version of it is down 6.23% this morning. We'll see what that looks like for MetaPlanet. I think Japan was down 6.71% yesterday. Again, Germany down 6.23. Might see something like that on MetaPlanet initially as it continues its bottoming pattern. And again, I want to get back to that Arthur Hayes conversation. But if we look over here, I do think we're starting to see that bottoming pattern. The Japanese one might be a little bit better. But again, there's a lot of volume right here. So once we get back above like the 870 range, 9 range, and then tackle up towards 10, I think it's off to the races again. And I actually think in very short order, we could see $23 and then up to the 33, 34 range in no time. Again, we already hit almost 16 right over here. And so it's not really crazy from that level to think that it might double again. Let's hop over here, though. I want to get back over to Arthur Hayes real quick. The 3 horsemen of the Bitcoin bull market. Let's listen to this part.
Now, recently, I want to talk about a few things.
Yeah, we'll look at SMLR too. SMLR actually this morning in pre-market is up almost 3%, so it's doing all right. They need to see more volume, but
The path to $1 million Bitcoin. And I believe there's 3 main prongs to this. So the first thing is capital controls versus tariffs. I wrote a recent essay where I delved into the fact that I think tariffs are bad politics because they encourage goods inflation and empty shelves, and the ordinary Americans don't like that.
see, I just want to argue against this real quick. He's really simplifying tariffs. He's looking at tariffs from what happened in the Great Depression, where, again, very nationalist, protectionist, increasing tariff levels, not trying to get better trade deals with your partners. So I think it's a very negative view and not reflective of reality of what the Trump administration is trying to accomplish.
But you can achieve the same goal of economic rebalancing by using capital controls instead.
Yes, you can, and we're going to end up doing that.
And so we started to see certain fringe economists, and it will be mainstream soon, talking about how they can rescind certain tax benefits that foreigners have investing into America and take this income and redistribute it either to voters or to buying certain maturity of treasury bonds. The second thing is an exemption of the bank supplemental leverage ratio.
He goes into more detail on that too.
Which I'll get into in a second. Scott Besson has talked about this on multiple interviews, and he's even turned up the rhetoric recently in recent Bloomberg and Fox News interviews talking about how this ratio, he believes this summer, there will be an exemption, just like there was in COVID, for large banks to buy treasuries with infinite leverage. And finally, something that's becoming a lot more energy is the Fannie and Freddie Mac, the government-sponsored entities that will be able to juice the mortgage market with lots of money if they're allowed to once again. So let's go into these 3 horsemen. Foreigners must pay is good politics, right?
Yep, and that's definitely something Trump is pushing with.
If you're going to go out to the voters and say, I'm going to give you something, obviously it'd be great if somebody else was paying for it. That's just how politics works around the world. So back in 1984, because the US government had another problem, same problem, how do we get people to buy our debt? And this is at a time when the 30-year treasury is trading at about 12% yield. They said, hey, why don't we exempt foreign owners of bonds from withholding taxes? Now, if you're an American, all the interest that you receive from owning a treasury bond is taxed at a particular rate. I think it's between 20 and 30%. And right now, if you're a foreigner, you don't have to pay that. So there is talk now about rescinding that exemption to do a few things. First, it could raise over $1 trillion over a decade by basically taxing foreigners on the income that they receive. Now, obviously, if you receive a tax, you're probably not going to want to own a treasury bond. So one thought is, how about we make it that it's very low tax to own a long-term treasury bond? These are the things that Besson has a trouble selling. And very high tax on treasury bills. These are the
So I think this is fucking brilliant, and nobody's talking about this right now. That's why we're going to talk about it. So right now, the long end of the curve is problematic. We have an issue where we can't issue a lot of longer term debt because the interest rates are so high. And so we can't term out our debt, right? We're having to issue a bunch of short dated treasuries instead, which are higher interest rates over shorter periods of time, where the hope is that if interest rates come down over time, we can then lock in debt for longer periods of time at lower interest rates, therefore reducing our overall debt burden over time. Because you don't want to lock in a 30-year at like 6% and the government has to pay that out. Our interest would become uncontrollable and just run away from us. So it would be a brilliant idea to make it to where maybe you're tax exempt on gains for longer dated bonds and maturities. And it would also be a brilliant idea because what you could do, if you guys remember the $7.2 or $7.4 trillion sitting on the sidelines right now in treasuries and money markets, that's collecting this, these higher rates of short-term interest. If you made it where that was a higher tax obligation, but then lower on the long end of the curve, the 10, the 20, and the 30 years, you would make it to where you could start to pull down the longer end rates and force people out of money markets and start putting $7 trillion of money to work. I think that's fucking brilliant. I hear nobody talking about this. But this is something that I believe is super key to getting yields down. And it's nice that Arthur brought it up of all people, our CCP lover. All right, let's listen. Let's keep going.
The cash-like instruments that you might own in your money market account. And everybody wants this. Everybody wants a high-yielding cash account. So let's penalize you for owning that, but let you own this long end. And
that's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it's what our government's going to do.
A soft form of yield curve control. How do we get demand into the long end from foreigners? Well, just change the tax rates.
And this is a less of a hammer of like doing bond buybacks and just buying all your issuance. This is a little bit lesser of a degree of a problem. So, but I agree, we're 100% going to do this.
Now, the ultimate problem of this is who's going to replace foreigners as a marginal owner of debt. Now, obviously, that means they're going to print the money to make up for the amount of money that's lost from foreigners not investing in this debt. Other thing, bank buying bonanza. So the supplemental.
I mean, part of that, the stablecoin legislation forcing people to hold larger amount of treasuries is going to help with that, I think. So I do believe, and again, we can do bond buybacks. We don't need foreigners. I mean, right now, Japan, I think, 52% of their debt market is the government owning its own bonds. So really, it's all in their control right now, and it's not really a free market anymore. So, I mean, these kind of things are levers that can be dialed into over the short term in order to be able to help. I don't know what's on his wrist, guys. Your guess is as good as mine. Here, let me see. If I make this 1080p, can we see? All right, let's try.
Leverage ratio. If you don't remember anything from this presentation, please remember this.
Looks like a weird bracelet.
It's a way for banks to buy bonds with infinite leverage. So there's something called
Now, this is important, guys. He's going to talk about Basel. He's going to talk about the supplemental leverage ratio and the exemption for treasuries. This is super important. You got to understand this part. This is stuff that Scott's already talking about doing. Listen to this.
Basel III, it's this very complicated regulation that was put in after the global financial.
You guys are so funny. People are like, all this really awesome stuff that we're hearing, and people are like, what's his bracelet?
Financial crisis, and it did something sensible. It said, hey, banks, you didn't have a lot of capital. Why don't we make you have more capital? So if I own a bond, I have to put up some of my own equity capital against that. That makes a lot of sense. Well, that means that the U.S. banks will run up into a limit as to how much U.S. Treasury debt they can buy. And remember, Besson has $2 trillion, if not more, per year of bonds that he needs to sell, and he needs to make sure that somebody can buy these. So if I remove this exemption, it allows commercial banks to buy Treasury bonds with infinite leverage. And when they can do that, their profits soar because they pay very low rates on commercial deposits. And obviously, smiling Jamie Dimon would very much love this to happen. And he has said this on many occasions that he believes that the banking system needs this exemption.
And again, this exemption is important, guys, because it creates an infinite money printer. Let me just go back here. So again, bank SLR exemption for treasuries can hold bonds with no capital charge, can buy bonds with infinite leverage, can buy what Besson is selling, frees up balance sheet to lend, profits soar. So, and he's right, Jamie Dimon's been asking for this forever. This is huge, though. This right here is a massive amount of capital being allowed to propagate throughout the banking industry. I told you before when I went to do my 0% offers on credit cards because I like to borrow debt for 2 to 3% interest for a year and a half, whatever I can get, right? So and then I just pay it off when I want to pay it off, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it with 800 plus credit scores. I couldn't get these offers because bank lending is so tight right now. This completely removes that, and it will allow bank lending to occur again. And again, it'll make it to where Scott Bessent can issue a bunch of bonds or shorter dated maturities and have banks gobble that shit up just the way that he wants them to. And it creates infinite amounts of leverage. It creates a dangerous situation over the long term that will hopefully be able to help us a lot over the short term in order to be able to have the no tax on tips over time, Social Security, all the things that we want to do to juice the economy while we're building up robotics, AI, autonomy, and bringing manufacturing back to the United States, at least advanced manufacturing and critical infrastructure manufacturing. So this would be a great thing to happen, and I think it's at a time where it's not the end of the fucking world because technology is moving at such a rapid pace, which people like Arthur Hayes, he seems to put a lot of work into his pecs and his arms, but I don't think he's putting enough into understanding the innovation of technology that isn't just happening in Bitcoin and the financial sector. He's not paying attention to the Teslas. I don't know why macro people, like, again, Arthur Hayes, Lynn Alden, Seyfedin Ammous, all these other people that are like doomers and you've got to buy Bitcoin and there's no stopping this train. I don't understand why they don't actually look at innovation being deflationary. I don't know why they don't look at that. His pecs are swole. I got you guys off on that now. But this is good. So between what we're talking about with getting it to where, to where bonds aren't taxed at the same rate as treasuries and kind of pushing people out of their $7.2 trillion in money market funds, getting them into longer dated maturities, getting them to invest in the stock market again, while increasing the amount of money that's flowing through the banking system. This is hugely beneficial for the stock market and Bitcoin. I hope you guys understand that.
Love this to happen, and he has said this on many occasions that he believes that the
You guys are talking about me. I'm not as big as Arthur Hayes. I'm trying to work on it, though. I got like some little pipes over here, but working on it. Thank you.
banking system needs this exemption. And as I always say, Jamie Dimon gets what Jamie Dimon wants.
I got to watch.
Something else,
No friendship bracelet.
stablecoins is obviously a very hot topic these days. If you combine stablecoins or U.S. banks issuing dollar stablecoins throughout the market that pay no yield with an SLR exemption, they essentially become just like Tether. They pay nothing to allow people to invest in these stablecoins and use them for transfers, and then they get to take all that money, put it into U.S. Treasury bills, and have no capital charge. And it's essentially
It's an infinite money printing glitch. So this is what Tether wants. This is why I think it was BlackRock that's investing in Circle, I think a 10% stake. This is why USDC keeps growing like crazy. We're going to look at Bitcoin treasury stuff and stable coins here in a little bit. But again, these three tools are massive and powerful. And Arthur Hayes is 100% right that this will pump the fucking global liquidity and moneymaker like crazy in the years ahead. And people aren't paying attention to it.
essentially infinite profit. So I expect that if this exemption goes through, which I think it will, you're going to see a very concerted effort by the large U.S. banks to issue their own stablecoin because it's a way for them to earn a lot of net interest income. Now this
Yes, they totally will. Now we're getting into Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and freeing up the balance sheet while turning these, to be private sector and profitable. This is all. This is so powerful, guys. All of this, you got to pay attention.
This is a tweet or a truth or whatever you want to fucking call it from Trump on Fannie and Freddie. Essentially, these are the organizations that were
Again, he hates Trump.
issuing mortgages during the financial crisis. Before the 2008 financial crisis, they were very profitable. Now, what happens when you free Fannie and Freddie? Essentially, you take them out of conservatorship. Now, this has been a trade that's been talked about, for almost 2 years now. If you bought it at $1, it's probably trading at 11 now, these companies on the market. But you take them from conservatorship, they're allowed to take their equity capital, issue more debt with an implicit government guarantee, and lever it 33 times. And then they can buy up to $5 trillion worth of mortgages. This is $5 trillion of liquidity that is going to come into the market if you allow these two organizations to get back to business as usual.
So Did you hear that figure? So I just got done telling you that we're going to be able to free up 7.2 trillion or 7.4 trillion in money markets and start to get them to go back into the bond market where they'll help pull the 10 to 30 years down, right? So we got that. And then at the same time, we've got the supplemental leverage ratio looking to free up just infinite amounts of capital. We've got stable coins that are going to be used in order to be able to get people, or I should say companies, to be able to start, buying more treasuries and potentially bonds too, even though there's some duration risk, but buying those in order to help keep yields down. And then you have $5 trillion of liquidity that can open up for the housing market by privatizing these. They can leverage 33x. So again, if you're a bear in this market, you're absolutely going to get raped.
And so here are the fucking maths. Where do I get this idea that Bitcoin could hit $1 million? So if we think about QE for poor people, banks lending more into the real economy, I estimate that could be up to $3 trillion of bank credit that will be created between now and 2028. The statistic to look for is on the weekly Federal Reserve balance sheet, other deposits and liabilities. We'll see that happening there.
And again, a huge portion of this is the supplemental leverage ratio.
If the banks are allowed to buy treasury bonds, it's estimated that $900 billion of foreign demand could evaporate. And that has to be replaced by commercial banks who now can buy these treasuries with infinite leverage.
But again, it gets replaced because they're able to do that because they don't have the supplemental leverage ratio.
And finally, let's free Fannie and Freddie and bring $5 trillion of liquidity to the markets, which gets us close to $9 trillion printed or between now and 2028. And let's put
And again, this isn't printed in the traditional sense, but this is liquidity to the markets. It looks like we got a good speaker here. We're going to be looking at CNBC in a little bit.
this into context. During COVID, the COVID stimulus programs and all the aid that was given to the financial sector within the United States totaled about $4 trillion. And from the lows of March of 2020 to 70,000 in 2021 in November, we went up about 10x. Remember, price is set on the margin. It matters about the much larger marginal price, not the whole stock. And so if we have less Bitcoin on exchanges due to ETF demand, and we're putting double the amount of money between now and 2028 than when we did till COVID, then Bitcoin $1 million is just easy. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all at our party tonight.
He's right. He's right. He's right about a lot of this. Again, he doesn't pay attention to technology. He doesn't like any of the current administration, really any of the administration. He's pro-China, at least to some degree, even though he does point out their faults. But man alive, people don't know what's coming. They need to, but they don't. All right, real quickly, I want you guys to listen to David Marcus. This guy was actually the person who was creating a stablecoin for Meta back when they were Facebook. That all died. It was supposed to be a blended stablecoin that was a basket of different currencies, and obviously nobody in the U.S. government wanted to do that, either liberal or conservative. But he's very smart, and he's CEO, I think, of Lightspark right now. I want you to hear what he has to say.
Clear.
Very
with
smart
President
dude.
Trump, crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House.
Thank you, J.D. Vance. He's right.
That was Vice President J.D. Vance speaking on stage at the Bitcoin 2025 conference in Las Vegas. Joining us right now is Lightspark's co-founder and CEO, David Marcus. Marcus previously led payments at Meta. He's also at PayPal and has been going to this conference, I believe, since something like 2013.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so it was like 5 guys in a basement in 2013, and now it's this?
It was, maybe 100 people in San Jose who didn't know what they were doing, but they found Bitcoin interesting.
And how many people were talking about this time?
35,000, I think.
So,
yeah.
When you saw the vice president there, I mean, if I had asked you in 2013, the vice president shows up at something like this, did you ever think that was in the cards?
If you asked me a year ago whether that was going to happen, I would not believe you.
And so where does this
Me
go
too.
from here? We were just talking to a fellow from Merrill Lynch talking.
I wouldn't have believed if you would have talked to me. Well, I mean, I guess it's like a year and a half ago now, 2 years ago in the bear. If you would have told me that we'd have Bitcoin ETFs prominent, not just in the United States, but like everywhere, I wouldn't have believed you. If you would have told me that we would have had as many public and private companies as we have now invested in Bitcoin, I wouldn't have believed you. And let's just look here real quick. This is, so right up here at the top right, look at this. This is publicly traded Bitcoin that's been accumulated. So look at this. Look at this since here. Look since about October of 2024. Look at the pace. We were sitting at about 364,000 Bitcoin for publicly traded companies. We're sitting closer to 804. Maybe it's 810 now today. So in a period of what, 6 months, we've more than doubled. We're up like 150 fucking percent. And purchased publicly public Bitcoin or public company Bitcoin. That's an insane fucking figure. And then when you look again, like we could take public companies out, we can look at governments. Again, governments are starting to go up as far as what's publicly recognized. That looks good. Look at private companies. Again, they went up a lot in 2022 to 2023, but we're starting to see more of that as well. But it's really public companies and ETFs. Like, let's look at ETFs too, because that is a thing. Look at the amount of Bitcoin. And again, that started kind of in 2020, some parts of the world, but look at how much it ramped up into this year. After the US got their ETFs, we went from 768,000 Bitcoin in ETFs to today 1.374 or 1.37 million. So it's really the driving factors right now are public companies and in ETFs. These numbers this year alone, since the end of last year, guys, we were sitting at a number of about 1 million Bitcoin between public companies and ETFs back, at the end of 2024. Now we're sitting at about 2.2 million in a half a year. In a year and a half, we've went up that much, and it's just a huge fucking figure, and it's just going parabolic. I mean, look at this. From down here to up here, it's just huge, and this is a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Let's go back over here and let him finish.
About sort of, when and if so these major firms are actually able to start pushing this stuff, not just sort of accepting it, if you will. How does that change it? Or do you think that's already built into the price?
No, I think there's so much room to go from here because...
Before he gets into that thought, I wanted to answer this. Disease Codex said, Jesse, what percent do you think we have of no more BTC bear market cycle? James says 20. 0. I think 0 because, and here's the thing, it depends on how you're framing this. If you're talking about the 4-year cycle, I think the 4-year cycle is going to get weird. It's going to be less of a 4-year cycle. It's going to probably kind of go away because the amount of issuance that's being done now versus the amount that's going to be out there in ETFs and governments and publicly traded companies is all changing. And again, pensions, ETFs, now 401ks, guys, we're going to look at that in a second here. The legislation that exists from the Biden era in regard to preventing 401ks from investing in Bitcoin is gone. Banks can invest in Bitcoin. Banks can custody Bitcoin. 401ks will be allowed to be able to invest in Bitcoin. There's going to be indices that are triggered. You got to realize MicroStrategy, once it becomes a part of the S&P 500, which I think can happen very soon, that will basically create automated buying of Bitcoin, right? Because MicroStrategy is buying Bitcoin, and if MicroStrategy is buying Bitcoin, and then ETFs are buying the S&P, they're going to be buying Bitcoin. You're going to have all this automated buying of Bitcoin that's happening behind the scenes that we haven't seen before, and it's going to limit downside risk. We'll still have cycles, though, because there's always euphoria, and then there's always despair. And so in regard to cycles, there will be cycles. Will they look like they've looked previously and be clearly defined? No, they change all the time. There's always... History will give you an image of something, but again, it's not a mirror image. It's just like a facsimile of it. So things are going to change. We'll have less downside risk with the large inflow, and I mean maybe we get to $4 trillion, $5 trillion market cap on Bitcoin. I think it's possible, right? Maybe we even get to 6. How insane would that be? It won't take another 4 trillion to get to 6. It could take 2 trillion to get to 6. That's the thing that people don't realize. When everybody's flooding in at once, it doesn't take that exact amount of capital in order to be able to get the market cap that high. It just doesn't work that way. But so I think that we could have a really big euphoria stage, and then we could break down.
Bitcoin is becoming mainstream. It's becoming really the true digital gold that we've all been talking about for a while. But now it's actually happening, and people care.
But you've always talked about also trying to make it a payment system.
Yes.
Like actually buy stuff with it.
Not necessarily with Bitcoin, the unit of accounts, but build a real-time settlement network on top of Bitcoin.
Which is what your company does.
Yes.
So the question is, when does that take off?
Well, it's taking off right now. We're having very large digital banks coming onto the network. We have Nubank that has 100 million customers in Latin America. We have Revolut coming on. We'll make announcements soon about US banks coming on as well, and other large wallets that are coming onto the network. So we're live in 70 countries, and you can move any currency to any currency in real time 24/7 on a weekend with Bitcoin in the middle. So it's happening.
It is.
How do you feel about a company like a GameStop putting it on its balance sheet, maybe playing a little bit of a Michael Saylor game? I don't know. And whether you think that's coming to corporate America writ large?
I think it is. The really interesting thing with Bitcoin is the incentives that were baked in 16 plus years ago, and now you see it play in such an incredible way. We had a lot of concentration with strategy, and suddenly you have dozens of other companies that are spinning up. So you're spreading the risk basically into other companies, and even Michael would say that he welcomes other people doing it.
Yep. You've given a lot of your support to President Trump. I believe you.
I love David Marcus because he actually gets all this stuff and has really good vision.
Switched gears.
Yes, I did.
And went that direction. And so my question, though.
Fuck you guys on all the accessories on these people's clothes and on their bodies. Come on.
Is I imagine you're very happy about some of the policies.
Is it a cancer thing? I don't know.
As it relates to Bitcoin. But what do you think of his family's involvement and his own personal involvement in Bitcoin? Well, and not just Bitcoin, crypto, meme stocks, the whole thing.
The question would be the same if you're talking about stocks and the stock market. Like, is the president's family allowed to actually trade stocks or deal with the private and public markets? And I think the answer is yes. And I think this is a new category.
You think the answer is yes?
I mean, it's a class. It's a new. Is the family not supposed to be able to buy stocks?
Correct.
Or even bonds?
Yes.
Or,
yes. They're not. They're not.
Are they allowed to hold dollars?
I don't think it matters what his family does. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. And like the person has to be divested, like Kenner Fitzgerald. Again, you've got Howard Lutnick divested from that, or at least I should say he's not controlling the company. There are conflicts of interest of things like that. But I'm sorry, there's always people that own the thing that's being promoted by the government. It's never going to not be that.
Well, that's an asset class too. I mean, it's a decision that you're making to hold dollars. Might not be a great decision.
Historically, presidents have either gone to blind trusts or done other kinds of things in the same way that if you...
Did their families go into blind trusts? No.
Want the head of the...
Did their friends that benefited from their decisions? No.
The SEC, I would imagine you wouldn't want them trading.
Yeah, exactly. About the Biden administration. No, he wasn't. He's such a fucking idiot.
I would imagine you would not want Congress trading if they knew or had any influence over any of these things, right? But just from a public trust perspective?
But I think we talked about this last time, but is like Nancy Pelosi supposed to trade stocks?
No, she's not.
I don't know.
I've said it publicly. It's a disgrace.
But so individual companies in Congress, I mean, that's rife with conflict. How does the president control Bitcoin? Necessary. I mean,
well, if you have a regulation that says, okay, now the whole world can actually have it,
then that's
a big impact.
That's the same as mortgages then, too. You can influence mortgages. You shouldn't be able to. It's such a big...
You wouldn't want owning Fannie and Freddie if you could influence mortgages.
Well, I wouldn't say can't have a mortgage or can't have a savings account or can't have a bond. These are much bigger.
Good job, Joe.
And less...
Like everyone should have a bank account. I'm not saying you're conflicted by having a bank account.
Family is supposed to be able to buy stocks. All
right, I'm going to kill this one. David might have some more valuable things to say, but Dorgan's ruining it for me. And we got a lot of new stuff to get through in a short period of time, so let's jump. So Sweden, MicroStrategy's K33 just raised 60 million. And what is that? Is that the krona? I don't remember what their currency is to buy Bitcoin. Again, this is just this isn't even factored in to the Bitcoin treasury stuff that I was showing you here for publicly traded companies. This is just another company that's done that. That will get updated later. Norway-based brokerage firm. Oh, this is the same. All right, let's keep going. Bergen County to tokenize $240 billion in property deeds on Avalanche blockchain. Again, there is stuff. There's stuff like this that's going to be happening all over the place. Tokenization is going to be huge. It's going to be on different chains. Bitcoin's the best. Just in, Bloomberg reports that investors are ditching gold for Bitcoin. They said BTC is more effective against financial system risk. And this right here, guys, oh, it's 8 minutes, but it's so good. It's so good. You got to hear this. This is Michael Saylor from yesterday. Corona. Corona. Not Corona. Not Corona with the limes. Corona. Thank you. This is Michael Saylor yesterday in his conversation. It was so good. Talking about what will happen. Everybody's got this worry. What will happen if the MNAV falls below 1? And this is Michael Saylor's strategy to be able to resolve that. And he can do this because of the way he's structured. And this is the same playbook that MetaPlanet is doing, albeit maybe better. And again, with a much lower market cap. Yeah, we can talk about similar too. There isn't too much to talk about it outside of the chart and then the recent Bitcoin purchase and whether they're finding support and all of that looks good. But let's listen to this real quick. This is very important, not just for MicroStrategy, but for companies like Saylor and MetaPlanet.
About this. So do you think it's possible for MNAV to drop below 1 in a bear market? And if it does, how would that impact your strategy?
Yeah, I think an important point on that is sometimes I see like Twitter analysts saying, oh,
this is so good. So good.
This is just like GBTC and Grayscale went below 1 times NAV before. And
and that's the big worry. That's the big worry that everybody has because GBTC couldn't do what MicroStrategy can do. That's the key difference. They couldn't do anything to counteract a 1x NAV, and these guys can. Let's listen.
They miss is that Grayscale was a trust company, a closed-in trust, and we're an operating company. And a trust company doesn't have the option to refinance or take on leverage or to sell securities, buy securities, recapitalize, or buy their own stock back. And so when you should think of a trust company as no, I'm gonna pick the wrong metaphor and people will hate me. It's just a form of corporate entity that has no operational flexibility to manage its capital structure. Operating companies have much more flexibility. We can buy stock, sell stock, recapitalize. We can take on debt to fix or to close a gap. So at the end of the day, I think that the one example people have in the crypto market, Grayscale trading below NAV, was because it was a trust, not an operating company. Theoretically, here, when an operating company or a company doing something trades below NAV, it's because the investors have lost faith in the management team and they think the management team is destroying shareholder value by acting irrationally. So for example, if I were to give myself $1 billion a year pay package and announce it, the stock would dive and people would say, what if I just said, hey, I have $64 billion of Bitcoin, I'm going to pay myself $1 billion a year for the next 64 years. People would lose faith in the company. They would say the management team is looting the shareholders. They dump the stock would trade below NAV. It's because the management team is doing something out of alignment with the interest of the shareholders that the stock would trade below NAV. Now, having said all of that, we constructed the company so that the company can generate yield and generate gains even at NAV or below NAV. For example, we have $64 billion of Bitcoin. If the stock were to trade to $1 tomorrow, well, we wouldn't sell the equity, duh. We would just sell the preferred stock. We would be selling stock over collateralized 10 to 1 against Bitcoin with a 10% yield, and we would generate billions of dollars of gains selling the preferred or the fixed income instrument. At some point, people would.
So he's saying, hey, we wouldn't dilute the stock shareholders. We would. That's a great look for Saylor, by the way. We would instead just use, again, their ability to use Strike and Strife in order to be able to generate funds in order to be able to buy more Bitcoin. And again, I'll save the rest. I'll let him say it.
Would say, wow, they're generating gains anyway, and then the value would come back into the equity. Or we would sell you sell a preferred stock. If someone's stupid enough to short my stock to $1, I would sell $1 billion of the preferred and I would buy back the common stock, right? And I would just recapitalize the company, right? And then the common stock would fly through the roof, and then they would be complaining that we bought the thing that they were selling.
So again, what he's saying is, no matter what happens, we have the tools in order to be able to ensure that A, we can buy Bitcoin, and B, we can ensure that we're paying out, and C, if somebody shorts the stock to oblivion, we can just make it to where we enrich ourselves by buying it back. So I just don't think people realize that he's thought through just about all aspects of this. And if there's anybody that can financially engineer something, it is Michael Saylor in my book.
Operating companies can do this. Trust companies, trust funds, ETFs, they can't do this. A closed-in trust can't do what I described. So the way that I see the world and the way that we see the world is when someone irrationally misprices something, then if it's mispriced too low, we buy it. And if it's priced at a massive premium, we might sell it, not to drive the price down, but just to capture the premium. And
so brilliant.
We construct all the preferred so that I sell this preferred to people who want US dollar yield. I sell this preferred to people that want convertible. I sell this preferred to people that want Japanese yield. I'll sell this thing to someone that might want a euro yield. I will create this for people that want leverage. And ultimately, we're creating value. And if one of the securities trades weak, we either stop selling it or we reverse it and start buying it. And if you don't go to business school, then I'll boil it down to one sentence. Here's business school. Keep your options open, right? That's what you learn in business school. And how do you create value? You have to generate option value. So you would say, well, why do you have that preferred and this preferred, and why do you do this some days and not do it other days? We're generating optionality. The more optionality we generate, the more opportunity we have. The Strife product. One day someone will start to
All right, real quickly before he goes into all the products. And again, all he's telling you is he's got levers, and he's just using common sense. If one of these is weak, whether it's Strike or Strife or whether it's, issuing stock, then you don't do that. And instead you use the ones that are not. And he's absolutely brilliant. Sydney said, you're not really invested in MSTR anymore. Is that right, Jesse? Or just a very small percentage right now for more asymmetric bets? Yes, I dialed out of MSTR because I want more asymmetric bets right now, because I think we're getting ready to take a massive leg higher. And after we get done with this video, we're going to jump into a bunch more Bitcoin things that indicate that we're nowhere near the end and that we're getting ready to scream higher. So yes, that's very true. I'm in MetaPlanet. I've got about 1.4 million. And then similar, I've got about 500,000. Again, we'll talk about that in a second.
Talk about interest rates collapsing. Maybe there'll be someone writing a story about how the Federal Reserve is under pressure to lowest interest rates, and SOFR will dive, or the forward interest rate curve will dive, and Strife will trade up. And it has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with our equity. It has nothing to do with the MNAV. It has to do with people's opinion of whether or not Jerome Powell is going to change his something. And so we're creating optionality into the credit market. Like someone else will say, well, I think the S&P is going to start to provide a credit rating for Bitcoin companies like MSTR.
Yeah, getting credit ratings would be huge for this company.
And then the price of those things will readjust, and there'll be a huge surge of demand. And we will, if we have an ATM, when that surge of demand comes, we can sell $10 billion in a week. If we don't have an ATM and that surge of demand comes, we sell nothing in a week, and we talk to some bankers for 4 weeks, and then by the time we do something, the opportunity's lost. So the thing...
Oh, he's just so brilliant. He just thinks of everything.
The thing that makes our company a monster is having multiple ATMs in multiple capital markets, all of them correlated to different forecasts, like your forecast of interest rates, your forecast of Bitcoin volatility, your forecast of Bitcoin itself, your forecast of crypto policy. All of those futures are changing all the time. We're straddling that future, and we're able to either buy or sell or hedge any of them in real time, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million, or 1 billion, right? And sometimes you do nothing for you could do nothing for a month or 2 months, and then you could do $2 billion in 2 hours, right? So, and maybe you'll do something, consistently, but we built the business to straddle the crypto economy and the traditional finance economy, and to monetize volatility, and we're pretty thoughtful about how we do it. So, you know, and this is the joke. If you're a closed-end trust and you trade below NAV, that's death. If you're an operating company and we trade below NAV, we just get to monetize that. That's good for me, right? I mean, arguably, the more irrational the market it is, the better it is. If you were to short our stock down to 10% of NAV, we would make billions and billions of dollars a day, right? And so we have a very anti-fragile structure, and I think we're pretty optimistic about the prospects there, because I'm quite sure the market will stay volatile.
Yeah, he's right. So tomorrow's trading below NAV. Yeah, it might be. I haven't looked today. But if it is, again, it gives them the opportunity to do that exact same thing. Not to the degree of what MicroStrategy has. MicroStrategy is the boss. And they've got massive amounts of power in order to be able to do these things. Let's keep running, though. So again, I want to show you kind of why this market's getting ready to take off, and why I've leveraged in even more into again, MicroStrategy treasury company like plays. Leading UK Prime Minister candidate to speak at the Bitcoin conference today. I can't wait to see this and see what he has to say. But talking about establishing a Bitcoin reserve. Ragnar, if you guys don't follow Ragnar, you should. He said he's showing a couple of different metrics that are out there. BTC bought per day. How many BTC were bought per calendar day since the first purchase of the announcement? So MicroStrategy is obviously leading by a huge number, just by the fact that they were so early. But essentially 331 BTC per day is the average of what we're looking at for MicroStrategy since they started purchasing. That is a crazy number. MetaPlanet comes in next at 20, almost 20, 19.5. I believe that will be increasing though, because again, they've garnered 71 million in additional funds in order to buy more Bitcoin, and I've got a feeling that's only going to get more aggressive. Saylor is third in the list at 11.7, and then again, Alt BG at 4.3, Cooler at 5.2, SWC at 2.7. All of these companies, again, buying Bitcoin in order to be able to buying Bitcoin, and us just getting an idea of at the aggressiveness of their pace. Another one, sats per share. Somebody asked what sats are. Sats are Satoshis. It's the smallest unit of account. You can go 8 decimal points from 1 Bitcoin over to what a Satoshi is. So again, a lot of people don't seem to understand this, but a Satoshi is the smallest unit of account. And so what he was showing here is how many sats per dollar per share. And when we look at this one, sats per dollar per share, MicroStrategy at 502, MetaPlanet at 166, Saylor at 683. So again, that's partially because the NAV premium is so low on Saylor right now. You're getting a really good value for the amount of Bitcoin per share that you own. Alt BG is at 73, one of the lowest down here. SWC is at 24. GME is at 33. Cooler's at 222. So again, this just gives you, it's just another way to look at it. We have 5 countries now that have set up strategic Bitcoin reserves. That number is only going to grow. We've got the Russian Central Bank today talking about how they just approved to allow Bitcoin and crypto derivatives offerings. Again, lots of really positive stuff happening, guys. We got Siddharth. It says Jack King has acquired almost 6 Bitcoin for 617,000. Again, just another company buying Bitcoin. We've got this post. This is a minute 24 from Eric Trump, just going off about the existing system. I kind of love it. I want you guys to hear this. This is just why Bitcoin is going to win.
Using the word hate, but honestly, I would love to see some of the big banks go extinct, because honestly, they deserve it. You know, and the fact that they've been allowed to get away with murder for as long as they have is honestly kind of shocking. I use this analogy all the time, but obviously I run a very big real estate company. Every Friday at 5 o'clock, we're waiting for a wire to come in. The SWIFT system is broken, but not a single person outside the crypto community has talked about this system that's so fundamentally flawed. It works 40 hours a week, barely. You have traditional banking in this country that runs 9 to 5 with an hour and a half lunch break. Go try and get a mortgage on your house. It takes 120 days, of which case at the end of it, they deny you even though they've banked you forever. You know, they say your money's safe when, you know, you deposit $1 million in a bank and they keep 100,000 bucks of it and they go spend your money somewhere else. You go try and pull out more than 5,000 bucks and you're on some terrorist watch list somewhere. I mean, the whole system, guys, is broken. And now all of a sudden you have crypto, which solves all the problems. It makes everything cheaper. It makes it faster. It makes it safer. It makes it more transparent. It makes the whole system more functional.
So people loved Eric Trump and this conversation at the conference. It was probably one of the most revered. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. Again, yeah, Cookie Monster says the best advocate for Bitcoin is someone who's been debanked and has been forced to learn how to use it. Case in point, Donald Trump in his first presidency shit all over Bitcoin and said that he likes the US dollar and he wants it to be strong. But because of what his family experienced while they were going, just, you know, Democrats were going with what, 104, 120, legal proceedings against the Trump himself, let alone his family being debanked by virtually everybody. And again, this wasn't just them. The Winklevoss twins were talking about how Gemini was down to its last bank and how they almost went under because of Operation Choke Point 2.0 and everything the Biden administration was doing to try and kill crypto and the Bitcoin sector. So this is huge. This is just a complete turnaround from what we've experienced. And then again, you've got Pakistani crypto chief saying that the country is going to launch its own Bitcoin strategic reserve. Again, one of 5 countries that's done that. You've got BlackRock talking about buying a 10% stake in stablecoin issuer Circle at IPO. And then you've got again, this is showing that Trump removed the Biden era restrictions on 401ks to buy Bitcoin. 8.9 trillion of potential capital is moving. Send it. And then you've got this Eric Adams, man. This was one of the best speeches. I won't give you the whole thing. This is 56 seconds of it. This one had me just with all the feels. I absolutely loved it. Again, he reminds me of a Baptist Southern preacher, just crushing it. I never realized how smart this guy is. He's brilliant. I think he's actually probably going to win the next election in New York City as an independent. He was formerly a Democrat, and I think he's going to be switching, but just a brilliant man. Oh, that's a really bad recording. 1 second here. Let me see if I can find something better, because that's just horrible. 1 second here. I'll see if I can find him in here. Got to go back. There's a lot of people talking. All right, there's that idiot Ryan Cohen. Let's see here. There's a bunch of people talking on the stage. There we go. All right. I might we'll listen to just a minute of this, but it's so much. It's so good. This dude is so good. I might actually jump in a little bit because he goes for a while. Let me see here. We'll kind of get towards the end here.
Not haters. And even those haters that laughed at us in the beginning, we have to ask in a uniform manner, who's laughing now? Look at how Bitcoin has grown. And we must match what is happening on the national level with what we're doing on the local level. If it grows in New York, it would cascade throughout the entire country. And we would normalize and allow young people to know the evolution and power of the Bitcoin universe. This is such a natural formation. If you go back to 1200 BCE, they were using shells for goods and services. We moved to the coins being made, then the paper currency, and then the credit cards. This is the next evolution that we must embrace. And those who are not willing to embrace it, they need to get the hell out of our way, because we're going to embrace it and we're going to move it forward. But I think in my conclusion, Vice President Vance said something that you should all listen to. We must be part of the political strength in our country. In golf, they say you drive for show, but you putt for dough. Local politics will determine what happens to this industry. So as you leave Las Vegas and go back to your local municipalities, identify the lawmakers who embrace this industry and not want to destroy it. Get engaged in your local politics, not only your national politics. Let your voices be heard. You showed the power of the Bitcoin community. We're going to use Bitcoin and blockchain for our birth certificates. We're going to use Bitcoin to pay off fines and taxes. We're going to allow our young people to understand what it is to be part of this industry. But we need you on the ground. And I thought the message was clear. Go on the ground and show the power. Because if you don't show the power to elected officials, they're going to show the power to destroy your industry. You must win. You are the Bessie Ross of the day. It's the everyday people that make this country what it is. And I know you hear a lot of naysayers on the greatness of America, and one poll said that 52% of Americans don't deeply love our countries, and our young people are being radicalized against the country. Well, I'm a 48%er. I still believe every day, and I still pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the greatest country on the globe, and this is one of the greatest movements that's been made in this country right now. Keep fighting on, the Bessie Ross of the day. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry. I love what he has to say, and there was so much more to it than that. He's brilliant. He understands all of this really well. Somebody said something about blockchain after mentioning Bitcoin. I actually don't have a problem with that, as long as they understand what they're talking about. Some people can't differentiate between the two. I don't think Eric Adams has that problem. And again, just a brilliant man. I wanted to show this. So Bitcoin Munger posted this, essentially showing long-term holder net position change. And you can see what happens when we start to reach the top. If you look at the black line here, you can see when we're getting up near the top, this number is plummeting, right? And then when we reach the bottom, you can see the long-term net holder position change gets really, really high, right? Well, guys, we're at the bottom right now, okay? We haven't had any long-term holder net position change. So again, last cycle, you can even see how it happened, how we went into the red. The previous one, quite a bit lower. So again, these prices that we're seeing here, this is something where again, so this is April of 2024, and then this is more recently in December of 2024, 25. And so you're seeing that there's nothing like that, and we've got a lot more room to run higher. And Mags has the Bitcoin inverse head and shoulder target 200,000. Again, I've kind of posted something like this myself, but I like the way they drew it out. It just shows the shoulder, the head, the right shoulder being even less, which again shows more power in this inverse head and shoulders, and then the measured move being in the 200,000 range, which I believe we're probably going to hit. And then you got Steak and Shake saying that they're saving 50% on processing fees by accepting Bitcoin payments using the Lightning Network. I love that. I think, again, we're going to see more of that built out. And then the Senate voting on the Genius Act. We haven't gotten there yet. They're moving slow as fuck. But again, I think all these things are beautiful. I put nowhere near the peak. This is the decode macro trend oscillator. Again, I showed this before. But just showing how we haven't even had our cycle peak up. This oscillator doesn't even show it starting. It shows it getting ready to start, but it doesn't show it starting yet. I think that is something that just so many people are not ready for. They're not ready for these major moves up. This again, Kush just showing how a stock like Eli Lilly did, where it had this accumulation zone and then broke out, and showing how there's similarities between that and Bitcoin. Again, I'm very excited with where we are right now with all of this, and I think it's only going to go higher. I wanted to talk real quickly. Bell is in 1 minute. Yeah, we can do that. Let me see here. Let's just pop this up here. Trump responds to taco trade.
Meet right now, please.
People who think that Trump is just running away all the time are just idiots. They don't understand what's really happening. But let's listen to the bell here in a second. It's going to be taken off in less than a minute. And then we'll move back to other topics. I want to talk about the tariff part too, and why I believe stays are going to be issued in order to be able to prevent the no tariffs that the international court had ruled yesterday. So I think that'll happen as early as next week, and then basically all that stuff becomes noise again. There's other tools that Trump can use to ensure that he has tariffs in place too. I don't actually think any of this is going to set him back, and we'll see if I'm right next week. But let's listen here.
You come high with something that seems impossibly high, and then you get to a more normalized level. He certainly would not call it playing chicken.
No, I mean, frankly, the reason I was surprised at that is because until this court ruling, I sense real movement. I mean, I thought that things were kind of going to start going his way with Europe, with India, and with Japan.
Yeah, so what Kramer's telling you here is that it actually makes it harder for him to complete the deals.
And with Korea, and I don't want to think that you should do the taco trade yet. As someone who used to own a Mexican restaurant, I don't know. I was trying to figure out burrito. I was trying to.
So even Kramer's agreeing that we were making headway with Europe. We were looking to close a deal with India. And now this ruling by these judges actually makes all of that worse. And it makes the long-term viability of the United States worse. But again, I think it's going to be overturned. If we look at pre-market here, guys, we can kind of see where things were sitting before the bell. We'll let it update on the daily here in a second and come back to that. It looks like, did it update? It looks like it did update. So again, Tesla in the green, some of the Magnificent Seven doing really well in the green, but really not a lot of market breadth, a lot of stuff much lower. We'll see whether or not that changes here as we get further into it. But again, in regard to tariff talk, Zero Hedge posted, Dear Federal Trade Court, does Scott Bessent have permission to plug the $250 billion tariff gap you just created with new treasuries, which will send the 10-year to 5% and cause another basis trade crisis? This is not beneficial. I saw Amit talking about this yesterday. I just don't think he understands this stuff yet. Maybe in the future he will. But he was saying that, Bessent's going to love this because Bessent didn't like tariffs. And yet the yields are screaming on the 30 and 10-year, which is what Bessent is trying to get lower. But this whole thing, not being able to close deals because of some weirdness with what's going on with our judicial is not beneficial to Scott Bessent in any way. Zero Hedge also posted Goldman on trade court decision, nothing burger. The administration, so this is Goldman Sachs, the administration could quickly replace the 10% tariff with a similar tariff up to 15% under Section 122. I think there's another number there. This would then provide the administration time to launch a series of SEC 301 cases against larger trading partners. So either way, they win. And this here, U.S. courts blocks most tariff hikes, but Trump may revive them using other powers, Goldman Sachs. That's some of what they were talking about up here. So you can click on that if you want to learn more. And then Peter said, don't order the taco platter quite yet from Goldman. Again, this is just a further explanation. Section 338 of the Trade Act of 1930 allows the president to impose tariffs of up to 50% on imports from countries that discriminate against the U.S. This authority, which has never been used, is similar to the authority under Section 301, except that it limits the amount of tariffs, but does not require a formal investigation. So there's all these things. And then also here, so I responded to Amit. I said the market. So this person said, well, why did the market go up based on this if this is bad? And I said the market is short-sighted and rarely thinks through the implications of things that happen when they read a headline. That said, it's like tariffs are probably still on. Most of these are likely to have a stay approved. And so this is a Grok summary of a deeper search, and it says summary of tariffs state status and appeal. So there's multiple tariffs. Section 232 tariff goods is unaffected by what happened. So this includes steel and a bunch of other things. Those are unaffected by the tariff. The tariffs being revoked that the three court judges had done yesterday. But these other ones, like the IEEPA based, the China specific, the Canada Mexico drug tariffs, again. Status after filing the ruling, block, appeal pending, likely stayed. Appeals have all been put in for these. And then again, appeal status is filed, stay expected, not applicable. So, and why is this? Stay likelihood. So the base tariffs across global, it says high based on economic impact, high given trade negotiations, high due to national security. You can't just have judges interrupting negotiations with our future with India without being granted a stay while they work through this stuff. And while they work through it could be like Q4. So I don't see these tariffs being removed. I just want to be very clear on that. Also, things that didn't get any press yesterday, the U.S. has paused exports of chip software and jet engine technology to China. This comes hours after President Trump ordered U.S. chip designers to stop selling to China. Is U.S.-China trade war ramping up again? And we're also kicking out students that are Chinese that we believe could be completing espionage. And it looks like, wow, NVIDIA's up 6.4% now. Let's just look over here. So again, doing really good. Tesla doing good. Amazon, the Magnificent Seven really doing all right. It looks like the broader market is starting to become a little less red, which is good too. Uber getting absolutely crushed, as it totally deserves. GME today, so GameStop guys down another 2% on the day. They really deserve that after Ryan Cohen did that horrific interview yesterday. Palantir flat on the day. Hood negative just a little bit. It looks like Saylor is actually up today, 2.67%. That is well deserved. It looks like Soul Strategies is up 1.32. That has not been doing that great. MetaPlanet is negative 3.8%, but again, had a really strong day yesterday, just continuing its bottoming pattern. So let's look at that. We'll look at that and Saylor too, since I promised Saylor. But if we look over here, again, you got kind of this curving bottoming pattern, and you got a lot of volume up here. Really, when we crack about 850 and get above that, that's when we're off to launch again. So we could maybe drop a little bit more in this, maybe get just down to $8 or just a hair underneath of it where we have volume, and then I think we'll spring up by the end of the day. And then I think by tomorrow, we'll probably be looking to launch again and get above that 850 range. That's kind of what I'm thinking with MetaPlanet. Let's look at Saylor real quick. Again, Saylor's up almost 3% on the day. I said earlier, I thought that was finding a bottoming pattern. If you look over here, you can see how we kind of got down to that first fib level and bounced off of it. And we've got a lot of volume over here on the shorter time frame. This thing goes back a long ways, so there's actually a lot more time frame to look at. But really, their Bitcoin adoption was only more recently. They skyrocketed to 82, then they crashed really hard down to 30. I believe that in short order, we're going to be back up to the $50 range and then creeping higher, and we'll see the NAV expand on this. You can see how volumes on the weekly time frame are just getting bigger. So again, I've got about 500,000 in this one. I like it. I think it's going to do really well. And I think that's only going to get better. Dario, Jesse, I'm on Discord checking if you're in New Leaps calls. Don't see anything. You just haven't updated. No, I haven't bought really any New Leaps in a while. And again, on Discord, all of the trades are there. I put it in there. There might be some that I miss every once in a while, but if you go through today's trades, you can go back through the historical here and see the trades that I've made. I have not been playing with options. I bought all the ones I'm going to buy. I own a shit ton. I don't have it pulled up right now, but I've got like 15,000 in CleanSpark or something. I've got like 10,000 or something in Mara. I don't know. I've got a shit ton of options and miners. In SMCI, I've got 6 figures. In ARCG, I've got 6 figures, about $250,000 or something like that. I've got plenty of options. I'm not really looking to acquire more. There might be some that I become interested in. But I'm really focused on the Bitcoin treasuries. I'm really focused on Bitcoin as a whole. I do believe that we're really preparing for launch right now, sitting at 108K. And I don't know, maybe we liquidate. I talked about this before. Maybe we need to liquidate James Wynn first. And I think his liquidation price is in the 104s. Maybe we need to liquidate him first because he's just too cocky. He's got too much money in play. And when these big conglomerates work together, they can destroy just about anybody. And so maybe that happens first. We also had news, Japan proposing to buy U.S. chip products in tariff talks. There's a lot of stuff going on the tariff front, guys. Goldman Sachs saying that tariff inflation is likely to be temporary. Again, this is before the news that tariffs were being stopped or frozen, which again I think is going to be corrected with a stay next week. But and then Europe, I think we were getting close to a deal because again said he was extremely satisfied with ramping up tariffs to 50% on the EU. I think we're getting close to some kind of deal there, and I think that they're probably gonna. I think Trump will let them know, hey guys, this isn't going to end. You need to work with us or you're going to get fucked. Thanks for being here today. Yes, happy to be. His liquidation price is 106. Is that now? I thought last time I checked he was at 104, but maybe it's changed for Wynn. James Wynn here. He's just getting too cocky. And I'm guilty of this too. Fuck the cabal, multi-billion dollar meme. Oh yeah, you're right. 106,327. He was down to 104, which means he must have levered up again. I wouldn't be doing this, and I wouldn't be posting my liquidation price unless he's playing with some games behind the scenes. He's begging to get wrecked. Not very smart. Not very smart at all. Let's real quickly. We'll jump into U.S. economy. Why do people think it's a good idea to post? It's not. It is not. So again, he's either fucking with people or he's just being an idiot. So Lisa Abramovich posted the city U.S. Economic Surprise Index has risen to the highest since February, with tariff pauses spurring a rebound in confidence and activity. That's bullshit. If you look at this index was before this tariff pause news came out. We were way up here. Okay, so this happened. Again, causation doesn't equal correlation. This thing is up. Does it mean that it's because of the tariff pause? No, it doesn't. It was happening before that. Anthony had the latest video from Cross Border Cap. I'm not going to go into too much of this. I've kind of glanced through it, but I haven't spent a lot of time on it. I'm going to do that today in between the Bitcoin conference. But it's essentially liquidity is returned for now, and it's continuing to go up. And I just gave you a ton of other reasons that Arthur Hayes was talking about with stablecoins and the legislation with the Genius Act, the market structure stuff that we're looking to pass, the supplemental leverage ratio, bond buybacks, how the Treasury can force people into longer yield bonds and get them out of Treasuries to free up all the money, the $7+ trillion sitting in money markets. I've given you a lot of reasons why liquidity is probably just going to get better. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and opening up all that money, helping the housing sector. Again, I see no end in sight, guys. Andre Steno Larson said, expect massive positive surprises to the macro surprises in June and July. Stocks, crypto above bonds. What he's pointing out here is the leading index, USD plus rates. How that is a forward guide, if you look here, in regard to the U.S. Economic Surprise Index. So what he's saying is things should get even better. He also said all the big guns are underweight or net short still. This is 18 hours ago. He said loads of rally chasing left during June. So he's saying that we're going to go up a lot. I totally agree with this. How is similar? I just showed it a second ago. So I think that with similar, or maybe I didn't pull it up. Let me do that real quick. I did show it for a second. I think I pulled it off. But essentially I said, hey, I think we're bouncing off of our first fib level over here, the .236. This is a fib extension level. So it's drawn from here up to here, back down to here, right? And it's actually a little off. Let me do this. I should draw it down just a little bit more. And so this doesn't, why am I fixing that? Because this shows how it perfectly bounced off that. And now we're up about 2% on the day. We could grind here for a little bit, but I do think that we're getting ready to take off, and similar too. And again, Similar's buying aggressively. People aren't paying attention to it. It doesn't have the NAV premium, which kind of hurts it. It helps it and hurts it. It hurts it in regard to the issuance isn't as profitable because you're not getting as much accretion, which is just like Bitcoin per share from an excessively high NAV premium like you're getting with MetaPlanet. But at the same time, though, people are looking at this. Volume is increasing. You can see it. You can see how it went from nothing to creeping up to really creeping up, dropping a little bit during the bear here, during this little brief downward turn, and then going up again and having much higher volume as a base here versus the base here. So, and again, so we're getting higher highs, boom, 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 and we're getting higher lows, boom, boom, and what I believe is going to be higher over here. So I think this is good from a technical aspect, looking at volumes, everything. I think Similar is looking good. I think it got beat up with all the proxies. Miners got destroyed yesterday. And again, GME didn't do so good. Today, MetaPlanet is down, and it looks like it's following the others. Japanese market was down about 6%. German market was down about 6%. It looks like we're down about that on MetaPlanet today, too. I actually think we're getting ready to launch. But who knows? Anything can happen over the short term. Maybe we drop all the way down here. Or I'm sorry, is this MetaPlanet? No, this is the Japanese market. That is Japan. Let me go back over here. Let's look at actual MetaPlanet. Is that over here? Is that over here? What did I do with my MetaPlanet, guys? What did I do with it? Did I lose it? Did I put it in the wrong place? I don't even see it. I don't know. Let me check. Oh, this is MetaPlanet. So it's down 5%. So close, whatever. So again, maybe this could drop a little bit more. I doubt it. I think we've got a nice little bottoming pattern here. And it looks, even on the 4 hour, it might even look better. See, look at that. You see how it's kind of flying over here and starting to get ready to roll back up, I think. So that's what I'm seeing on both of these. I think they're in a really good position and could go up higher. Thank you for the $10 too, Helga. Bill, any thoughts on EOC? Jeff Lutz follows them pretty closely, and since his discussion about 4 months, I haven't spent enough time on it, so I can't talk about it. I've been negative about it in the past. Some of the fundamentals do appear to be improving, and I love Jeff Lutz. He is brilliant as far as somebody understanding like supply chains and manufacturing. So I love him and respect him a lot. So let's just take a quick glance here. So revenue is up. Again, 10 million in Q1. We had our first positive net income here, which is great. 15 million positive net income. Cash flows are still horrific. If you look at free cash flow here, still horrible. Negative 34 million in cash flow versus 10 million in revenue and a net income positive of 15 million. Still got massive debt here. Still diluting shareholders, high operating expenses, but the commercial pipeline is increasing, and service revenue got a little bit better. And if we look over here, I think it's their forward-looking stuff, their estimates. If these estimates are true, then this stock is probably going to get a lot better and actually have some real revenue growth. I don't know, though. I don't know the company well enough. I respect Jeff. It looks like their estimates have gotten much improved. Now it's just a matter of proving it, and we'll see whether or not that happens. That's pretty much where I'm at with that. I don't have a lot more to say. Can MetaPlanet go up in U.S. markets without the Japanese markets as they lack liquidity? It could. And U.S. markets have the most liquidity. Then comes Japan. Then comes Germany. So U.S. is really the decider on all of it, I think. And again, I think we're getting a bottoming pattern. We're down about 5.33% today. But that was after holding on with a 3% gain yesterday when GameStop was down almost 11%, and it's down almost 2% today. So I'd still say that they're crushing it. And there's other companies too. Again, this index, a lot of people talking about Bitcoin treasuries. That seems to be a really popular thing right now. And we can look over here and see a few of them. So if we sort by percentage change here, let's just see who's doing well today. So ASST is up 2.24%. Similar is up 2%. MicroStrategy is up 1.27%. Cooler is up 1.28%. Then Alt BG is down. GME is down. SEP's down. Thumbs Up is down. MetaPlanet's down. And so MetaPlanet taking it the worst after doing the best yesterday. I don't think there's anything weird about that. I think people are just rotating and shifting in and out. But MetaPlanet's still my favorite play by far. There's a reason why I guess right now it's only 1.35 million in it, is because I really, really believe in this. I believe in Dylan LeClaire. I actually want to talk about that real quick, but let's get through U.S. economy. So again, FMS U.S. equity allocation lowest. So there's just so much showing us that this is going higher. I also wanted to show this, guys, because I think it's important for people to understand. People sometimes look at PE ratio and they're like, it's too high, it's too high, it's too high. But when you look at revenue growth, it's really important to realize that, like, look at some companies like ZOM. I think that's Exxon. I can't remember how they have negative growth. Look at Costco, how they have like 7% growth, right? But they have a PE that's like 55x. Look at Netflix that has like 14% growth, but they have a PE that's like 46x. Look at Microsoft that has a PE of like 33, even though it's got like 13% revenue growth. And then look at something like NVIDIA, where people are like, oh, the PE is too high because it's like 31x, but it's growing at 55%. So there's just, again, you have to look at things through different views, not just one metric, not just PE. You need to look at growth. And if you're just looking at PE and you're comparing an Apple that's growing by like 4% a year in revenue growth, and again, they've got lots of cash, there's other metrics, but all I'm trying to say here is don't just look at one fucking metric. Look at the whole picture, because Apple isn't comparable to NVIDIA in regard to growth. Do they have a lot more cash on hand, or have they previously? Yes. But when you stop growing, it's kind of death. And I would argue that NVIDIA deserves the multiple, and this is before yesterday, that it has. I believe it deserves it. Peru said CTAs, and these are commodity traders, he says momentum's building. CTAs are coming back in the game. Positioning still not overextended. This suggests we're in for a longer rally in equities. So these guys were very, very grossly negative on equities, and now they're having to reposition just like the hedgies, just like everybody else. A lot of people off sides that are just getting pulled in. Ryan Detrick, love him. He said, finally more AAI bulls than bears after 15 consecutive weeks. So remember, the AAI bears was like the most negative it's ever been. He said, turns out when long streaks of bears are greater than bulls ends, it's quite bullish for markets. S&P 500 up a median nearly of 22% a year later, and up at least a double digit 7 to 8 times. And just for fun, 2008 was the one time it didn't work. So again, if we believe we're at the start of 2008, then we could have further problems. But otherwise, I mean, if you look here, guys, at the amount of drop that we had over here versus where we're at, nearing all-time highs again, we've already fixed the 2008 dilemma. So we can ignore that. And then again, I said there's not a lot of time for hedge funds to close their short positions and go long. So this is just Seth Golden here, showing he said if you felt pretty confident selling would persist, here's a helpful reminder for the next major correction. When the weekly 52-week NYSE lows go up 900 plus, you're likely only a couple of weeks away from actual lows. So what he's saying here, if you look at previous history, going back into 2020, 2022, when we reached these really, really high numbers here, that we were right at the low, if not at the low. And so the chance of us not being near the low based on history is pretty low probabilities. Just another indicator of many indicators telling us that we're ready to go up. I think, and Seth Golden too, commercial hedgers and index futures last week covered enough short positions to generate a simultaneous buy signals on both short and long smart money models. So all he's saying is, again, hedge funds were stuck, and they're looking to go up on the NASDAQ 100 here. So all that stuff is really beautiful, and it's good for us. I do want to show this real quick here. Let's see, EOC management forecasting 10x revenue growth. Yep, that's what we were looking at from their estimates here. Mike said, per Elon, Tesla rolling our self-delivering new cars from the factory to your house in the next month is absolutely amazing. That is insane. I don't know how they're going to do that. I got to understand it more. And again, which way, Western man? We've got we're not going to call our shots in advance, and we've got Dylan LeClaire saying we're going to call our shots in advance, literally calling these guys out. Again, 0% ordinary bonds to purchase additional BTC. MetaPlanet issues 21 million, so a total of I believe it was 50 before that, and then 21, so 71 million issued. Vincent said it's not even a fair comparison. MetaPlanet operates as a legitimate business with clear strategic roadmap, transparent communication that builds investor confidence, and tier 1 execution capabilities. I wish the best for GME and, of course, their investors, but their lack of transparency in operations makes it difficult to gain the trust of most investors. At the very least, they haven't earned mine, and YOLO is not my style. I agree. 100%. If you look at MetaPlanet's chart with 82 days offset versus global M2, it looks pretty much like a mirror image telling us that we're going up higher. Right now we're sitting at the 1100 range. This is showing almost 4,000. So this is showing a 300% increase in MetaPlanet in the months ahead. That would be nice for me because I'd make 300%. What would I make? I've got 1.3 million. I would make $5 million, or $4.5 million roughly off of that move. So that would be cool. MetaPlanet absorbing demand from South Korea as well. Satan KMT said, I'm Korean. Korea is a country that is passionate about Bitcoin, but it is illegal for companies to hold Bitcoin in South Korea right now. However, it's easy to buy Japanese stocks in Korea. MetaPlanet can absorb the demand from Koreans as well. And again, me just pointing out yesterday early that MetaPlanet is better than GameStop. which was proven out once this thing got down to 11%, and this was up 3. In Discord, I predicted MetaPlanet was lowering debt. So essentially, Dylan was saying it's time to relever. He was saying I assumed 25 to 30 million that they were going to be issuing in order to be able to purchase more Bitcoin, but we got 71 now, guys. So this guy is a huge advocate for MetaPlanet, and his estimates were low. So again, there's the 50 million, 0%. And real quickly here, let me see. This is 2 minutes, 55 seconds. This will give me time to pee, which I desperately need to do. So we're going to play this real quick here. Just 1 second, and then I'll be right back.
To add on to that, one of the unique aspects of a Bitcoin treasury company is that for us, Bitcoin's not a hedge. A lot of the narrative over the first 10 years of Bitcoin is like take 1%, put it as a hedge against the system, and it'll pay off. And I think one of the reasons that MetaPlanet was so special in Japan and is still such a big story on Friday or Thursday, we were the #1 most traded stock in Japan. Is because we came out, we came out in May of 2024 and said, Bitcoin is our unit of account for all economic calculation. It's not crypto, it's not blockchain, it's not a hedge. Bitcoin actually de-risks our balance sheet. Bitcoin de-risks our company. And so all of our calculations, not BTC USD. We want to buy it lower, but we don't really care if it goes down next week. That's par for the course. But our calculation is, what's the enterprise value of the company and what's our net asset value, and if we issue equity, how accretive is it? So I think that that's the biggest kind of leap here, and that's what Saylor showed the market. And I think the global financial markets, in terms of percent of total capital, really only maybe 1% or less or smaller of the world kind of understands this. So there's a lot of alpha, there's a lot of opportunity to, whether it's a, jurisdiction or even in the U.S., maybe it's probably the opportunity to be a really tiny micro small cap in the United States and become $1 billion company just with Bitcoin capital formation. Maybe that period is over. But if you're just a boring cash flowing business that is trading at a very small multiple, the best thing you could do to supercharge your business is to go all in on Bitcoin. And again, I think there's a differentiator here in terms of the C-suite, the executives, the chairs on the board. Like, are you doing this as a gimmick because that equity liquidity increases and
Ryan Cohen,
attention and people buy the stock, or do you believe in the thing?
MetaPlanet.
And I think if you don't believe it, then people can see through that, right?
Ryan Cohen.
And so, MetaPlanet, we started buying Bitcoin and immediately, we saw a 30% drawdown, right? And I think if you were new to the asset class, you start to sweat a little bit. But for us, we were really relieved because we had just started. We had 100 Bitcoin. So it was like, okay, this is great. We can continue on. So yeah, I think that's kind of how I think about things is there's going to be all different flavors of allocators in the capital markets and the public markets. It's a lot of people are going to take a 1% stake or, diversify the balance sheet with 10% BTC. But for the companies that are all in, 110% in, that can execute continuously, I think there's a lot of opportunity for investors to compound at a really aggressive rate.
And my favorites for these guys, and again, some of these others will probably do well too, and whatever, it is what it is. There's different markets for everybody, right? Like all PG and just there's markets opening up all over the world. And that's fine. That's perfect. But MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, and Saylor are the ones I believe in the most. Okay? Saylor because it's such a small cap and they're dedicated and Eric gets it and they hired Natalie Brunell and they've got a low NAV and I see the NAV growing and I see them buying even more. I think that's great. But MetaPlanet, just because, again, I think Asia is desperate to get access to this and there's a bunch of reasons why this is better. And why it's going to get purchased in Asia. But I want to talk about this. I might have talked about it already, but Dylan LeClaire, this man up here, personally saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars and allowed me to continue my journey. He saved people from FTX. He saved people from Luna. He saved people from Silvergate Bank, Celsius, and a bunch of other collapses where he was talking about how the rehypothecation of funds, all the things that they were doing were incredibly dangerous and that they weren't safe. And he also mentioned that with Binance too. and pointed out the problems that later CZ would, be arrested for. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. He's young. Yes, he's young, but he's brilliant. He's hardworking. He's very, very smart. He saved me a fortune, and I have, the don't trust, verify thing is very real. And I verified this guy with my own money, saving my ass numerous times. That he is the real deal, and I've got the utmost level of conviction in him. And the CEO is even more brilliant. He's a derivatives trader from back in the day. I think he's a Harvard grad. Like, these people are these guys are the real deal. They're not Ryan Cohen, okay? And saving me all this money, I'll be forever indebted to him for that. So I am a huge advocate for MetaPlanet. And I don't think they're a Ponzi scheme. I think they're amazing. And again, in Japan, things are different. No 55% BTC capital gain tax on Bitcoin. So that's something you got to worry about if you're in Japan. You have to worry about high capital gains taxes, specifically for Bitcoin, but also for equities. But the way that this thing is structured, it's only like a 20% tax if you invest in MetaPlanet. There's a huge incentive for that. Their bond yields are still absolutely out of control in Japan, and only going to get worse. Again, their prime minister said that they're looking at an apocalypse, essentially. If you look at their bonds here, guys, this is the 10-year. And yes, their bonds did go negative. They went negative by, 0.3% for a while there, which is just fugazi and insane. But we're still seeing their bonds gaining strength as far as the yield, which means their bond market is weak. And so when you have a weak bond market, a weak stock market, an economy that's being compared to Greece and their debt crisis, you have people that need to find a safe haven for their money. And I would argue that Bitcoin is no better vehicle for that. And a company like MetaPlanet is really the safety mechanism for them. And again, South Korea can invest, and investors can invest in Bitcoin easily too. So that kimchi premium can go in here to MetaPlanet as well. And with just the aggressiveness of their purchasing, with the very low debt environment that they have, with the fact that they've got this derivatives trader, CEO, investor, along with Dylan, who's brilliant, that can increase their revenue and income while reducing the amount that they would dilute, issuing bonds, buying up all the Bitcoin. I'm just incredibly excited. And then the warrant structure that they have, I'm incredibly excited that they're following the Saylor playbook. I think this is the equivalent. Somebody said this is the equivalent of buying MicroStrategy at $10. And again, today it's near 400, 367. I don't know if it's that, but maybe it's 30. Maybe it's $30. The equivalent of getting it at 30 and then getting ready to watch at 10x. That's possible. If it 3x's, I'll be happy. I'll be happy. I'll get past my 10 million goal for my portfolio. It's actually 12 million, but it'll get me to where, I can start looking at that multi-million-dollar home with the pool. So I'm excited about it. I'm not worried about any down days. It looks like we're down 4.21%, and MetaPlanet's already starting to bounce a little bit. I'm very excited about this company, guys. And again, do your own research. It's always important to do that, right? Like, you've got to have your own perspectives in life. But I believe that this company is amazing and that there's a lot of reasons to be really excited about it. And I think we're going to see that short squeeze come back again. I do. If we have a day where we trade up 10, 15% in the United States, 20%, the Japanese markets are still behind as far as total return percentage. So there's an arbitrage play there. And then if they get locked out, then they'll just have to cover, and then they'll be locked again, and then this will stream higher, and then they'll get locked again. They'll just limit up over and over again. And I do believe that trade's coming back, even if it's not here right now. So I just wanted to throw that out there and make sure that you guys understand where I feel about this. Real quickly, energy, and then we're going to go to Tesla. Elon Musk is kind of shitting on Congress and this administration a little bit. And I mean, it's good for him to do that, right? He should always be true and authentic to himself. He said there's no change to tax incentives for oil and gas, just EV and solar. So he's rightfully calling out the fact that we're eliminating the eliminating the incentives for EV, eliminating the incentives for solar, but we're not doing that for gas and oil. Those credits still stay, and that's wrong. And I agree. What I want to see happen is I want to see all of energy being promoted, and let the best man win. And it bums me out that that's not what we're focused on right now in this administration. And I'll say that this is a bad thing that Trump's administration is doing, because again, I'll call things like I see them. I'm very pro-Trump right now. I'm not liking what's happening with Congress. I'm not liking what's happening with just the rhino state that we're living in right now, and with the Republican Party. And I'm not happy with the fact that we're not aggressively pushing for energy. And these are winners. And Elon says that here. He says, compared to solar, oil is small time. And I think that Trump is focused on some of the old tech, and that could hurt us in the long run. But we'll see how things play out. As long as we're pushing a lot of energy and that's rapidly increasing, we'll be good. And here's the positive that I still see, even though I think Trump is fumbling the ball on this. I think that the sheer demand for energy that's going to be coming from these AI data centers, and that's going to be coming from Bitcoin generation, and just all the demand and energies that we have will force the market to generate more, even if the government isn't doing a great job incentivizing that, or is giving old tech, a better playing field than new tech. But I do agree, though. Let's listen real quickly. This is 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Elon took the time to retweet this and give his thoughts, so I want to hear it.
And I think you're 100% right that people do not appreciate the difference in scale here, where like the rate, like China's still growing exponentially on their solar deployments. Yeah. The targets for what their solar and battery manufacturing capacity, I'm not saying that they're necessarily 100% going to use all of that, domestically in their country, but what that could do, right? If you take 2 terawatts of solar and about 8 terawatt hours of storage, that's an entire US worth of electricity generation. That's like 4,000 terawatt hours a year of 24/7 solar power. They're going to be able to make that every single year.
What is fucking when?
By like 2030. Like this is extreme.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
This like the.
To be clear, I don't know that they'll be able to reach that, because I think China is in a majorly bad place right now. And I probably need to talk about that more again soon, because I've been pretty quiet on it. But they're doing really, 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 really bad. Really bad. So I don't think this will ever be reached.
And
that actually, of all the things you've said that blown my mind, that's fucking insane.
This is like current capacity announced and under development. Even the stuff that like they're making today, and not all of this is utilized at 100%. And like, I'm not saying that
it's actually, a lot of it's not going to be utilized at all. I fear in the future, because again, you can build it, but it doesn't necessarily mean they come. And you can see that if you just look at all the abandoned ghost cities in China. Not a fan of the $200 federal EV tax, too, for owning one. Yeah, there's just a bunch of stupid shit like that doesn't make any sense. Now, I will say this: if we look, actually, this line needs to be redrawn, because that's actually probably, that's about right. Okay. So if you look here, you can see that with AMD, somebody asked about that a second ago, so I'm just going to pull it up real quick. AMD was down 66% from its high, and I do think that it's done a good job bouncing, and I think it's got some room to run up into this gap here at the 132 range. And with the way the chip sector is doing, it wouldn't surprise me at all if by the end of this year, we're looking at this thing near the all-time highs. I have not looked at calls on it. I'm not really focused on adding more exposure. Again, I've already got SMCI. That today looks as flat, though, and NVIDIA is only up 3.75, so it's retraced a little bit, too. And AMD, what is it, up 0.74%, so it looks like it's doing all right here. So, yeah, I do believe that there's going to be more demand for AMD. It's going to benefit from the success of, I think all these chip makers and producers and builders are going to benefit from this. The leaps aren't a great multiplier. Which leaps? Bobby, I lost 70% of my Bitcoin in Celsius. Wish I was listening to you and him back then. Yeah, I'm sorry, Bobby. That's a bummer, man. Yeah, Dylan saved me, dude. And I passed that on to everybody that would listen. So many people didn't take advantage of it, even when others had collapsed. And he had called Luna and he had called FTX, and there were the other things starting to roll over. People still didn't listen to me and him. It's just astonishing, but he saved us a fortune. And yeah, I wish we could have saved more people like yourself. So yeah, AMD might do all right. I mean, this is looking good. This is looking bouncy. I probably need to draw a new fib here that actually looks at a trend-based extension instead of just a retracement, because I think it already made it. Let me just do this. I got to put this back where I found it real quick here. All right, let me see. Trump given 10 days to rescind tariffs after block by U.S. federal trade. Okay, Trump given 10 days to rescind tariffs after block by U.S. federal trade courts. So they're telling him he has 10 days to rescind it. But again, he's going to appeal and probably get a stay. This is just going to be court talk, but I don't think the tariffs are going anywhere. Let me see here. So yeah, that's it for the energy. Also Trump admin approves first fast track mining project, uranium mine in Utah. By streamlining the review process for critical mineral projects, we're reducing dependence on foreign adversaries and ensuring our military, medical, and energy sectors have the resources they need to thrive. So again, we're doing a lot to promote nuclear. I like that part. I just don't like the anti-solar thing. I think history tells us it's wrong. Jesse Pelton, again, this other guy said, China didn't build all this solar for the purpose of lowering emissions. They're tapping the largest energy resource on Earth. Emissions reductions are a side effect. So again, they're showing that they're building this out in order to be able to benefit from it. And I think we should be embracing it too. Let's talk Tesla. So we got the godfather of AI, Jensen Huang, talking about Optimus and how it's going to be like one of the biggest products ever. I won't go into the whole video here since I've spent a lot of time already, but I agree with him. Elon Musk said for the past several days, Tesla's been testing self-driving cars. No one's in the driver's seat on Austin public streets with no incidents. A month ahead of schedule. Next month, first self-driving from factory to customer. And again, I think they're going to be doing that in that region, which is just amazing. Jesse, any info on Jack Mallers' XXI? No, I don't have any right now. That's SEP, I think, right now. I don't think it's changed for a ticker symbol. And I'm not really focused on it until it gets converted over, honestly. Farzad said, legacy auto is very obviously dead. Agreed, especially after the federal tax incentive goes away for the EVs. Chinese auto is very obviously overrated. Yes, we're going to talk about BYD in a second. And that's one of the better ones. And Tesla is obviously underrated. I agree with all of that. Tesla up about 1% on the day. The market seems to be kind of tabling off. I think the market started to realize that this suspension of tariffs isn't necessarily a good thing. So maybe they're starting to sober up. Son of the Walkie breaking per Bloomberg, Tesla to launch robotaxis on June 12th. We already talked about that. Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram, said this summer Telegram users will gain access to the best AI technology on the market, Grok, which is awesome. Here we go. BYD busted. EVG giant sued for slavery-like conditions in Brazil. We've talked about this before, but Brazilian prosecutors just dropped a $45.5 million lawsuit on Chinese EV titan, accusing it of turning a factory into a human rights dumpster fire. 220 Chinese workers were rescued from squalid living conditions. Think beds with no mattresses, one toilet for 31 people, and passports confiscated like a hostage situation. Workers had up to 70% of their wages withheld, with contracts so exploitive they'd make a sweatshop blush. BYD brags about building dreams, but in Brazil it looks more like building nightmares. We're going to talk about more about that in a second. SpaceX Starlink satellite internet plans may debut in India under $10 a month, which would be a game changer in India. Think about all these people getting access to high-speed internet. Grok 3.5 is coming. Look at that. A day before BYD's 10 to 34% price cuts. BYD is struggling. If their ASPs are $10K lower than Tesla, they're only selling about the same amount. Even globally, their ASPs are less than half of Tesla's. Why did they only sell about the same number of EVs as last year as Tesla? Now look at their channel inventory. BYD is fucked. I just want to be very clear on this. BYD is fucked, guys. Again, they're operating in slave-like conditions, and they're still not doing well. This is the thing that people are going to start to understand in the not-too-distant future. Also, I wanted to show you guys this. This is an AI-controlled data farm. Or I'm sorry, this is an AI-controlled bot farm trying to influence what you see and believe, okay? So not only do we have the mainstream media doing this, we've got these farms trying to manipulate who is in power and who has a voice. This should scare you. Look at this. This is just one. Look at all these phones. Look at this. They're doing this in China. They're doing this in the USA. There are people that are working to control what you see and believe. Just remember that all the time, okay? EC, $10 tip. Thank you, sir. Jesse, what TradingView subscription plan do you recommend, and do you offer a promo or a link? Yeah, you can check my main page, and you should see a TradingView link in there. I don't know what they have for promotions. It's really good around like Black Friday sales. They get like 60% off sometimes. So it's a much better time to renew. I would do just the free stuff until you can find a really good deal. And again, they offer those sometimes throughout the year. So like New Year's, they might do another one too. The Black Friday one is probably the best. I would wait for that. So I would probably just do free and then check that out. And then again, there's a link in my profile. Morgan Stanley maintained their buy rating with a 410 price target, rightfully so. This is also how BYD treats their Chinese employees in the country. So I'll just bring this into where we can translate the post so you can see what it says. It says BYD in Chengdu, Sichuan forcibly dismissed employees over the age of 50. So age discrimination. This poor lady just no longer has a job. She didn't understand why. They just literally wouldn't let her into the plant. So if you're over 50, you're fucked. Go get a new job. We won't even let you in. We didn't tell you that you were fired. You just don't have a job anymore. This is how BYD operates. People are slaves. And they're worse when they leave the country, like in Brazil. Then they hold your passport and literally turn you into a slave. This is the only reason BYD exists. BYD, government subsidies, slave wages, treating Chinese people like shit is the only reason BYD exists. If you're invested in this company, you condone and appreciate this kind of behavior, where they literally just rape and pillage the fucking Chinese people. And again, I want to go back to this and just show you the shitty Unitree robot. Tell me which one looks more human-like and lifelike. This one doesn't even have a brain. It's programmed shit, remote-controlled shit. This one is thinking for itself and looking at its surroundings and able to do all kinds of cool shit. So, and again, it learns this from watching a video. This one's retarded as fuck. And there's a reason why it's hollow and has no face, because it has no brain. There's a bunch more here in Tesla. I love this. Look at this Starship Pez dispenser. It shows how this ended up failing. They couldn't get the launch door open, but whatever. This just shows what they're planning on doing. First principles all the way with everything Elon Musk. And he's trying to fight all the bots that are jumping through the system. Believe him, he is. And again, just look at this. Look at these robots. Look at how retarded these are. They're remote-controlled cars. You can literally see a guy with a remote control over here driving it. They're just fucking trash. Starship, we're looking at up to 25 flights a year. So we're going to start seeing those like every couple of weeks. We're going to start seeing these things take off about every 3 weeks, and then probably even more so. Musk says merging Tesla and XAI not out of the question. We had Walter Isaacson talking about that. Again, the robots are coming. All this stuff was amazing. This video right here was just insane. Watching these robots learn how. Right now, they use first-person perspective, guys, in order to be like they have to. You teleoperate and you show them from first person how to do stuff. But now they're able to start learning by third person. So you can just show them videos in a third person perspective of somebody cooking. And they can go like, oh, yeah, I could see how I could do that. They're getting so much more intelligent, and their ability to be able to do stuff, I think, is incredibly underrated. I do not own a lot of Tesla right now because I'm so dialed in right now to the Bitcoin proxies. But as I make a bunch of money and a much higher multiple, I will be buying back into Tesla pretty aggressively, even if it's up, because I don't care. And again, Tesla maybe has 100% upside between now and the end of the year. 120, 100% between now and the beginning of the year. Something like that. Maybe it could get up to 900. But I think the upside that I'm going to get off these other things is a lot higher, which is why I'm doing it. But again, I still have an absolute love and respect for Elon Musk and Tesla and everything they are. His trading review referral is in its bio. Yeah, just check my pin profile here, and you can see it. It's in there. This top post. It might be in my bio, but also you should be able to go into here, and I think down below there's like referral links for different things like Robinhood and TradingView and FS Insight and all that stuff. So you can find all of it right there. And I should get a new one of these out. I'll try and do it by this weekend before I leave for my trip. Optimus works better than me in the morning. Fuck, me too, bro. Me too. So again, let's take a look over here. We'll just check out the heat map, see where things are at. So Tesla came back a little bit, and everything really did. The Magnificent Seven, everything's kind of flattened out, and maybe dropped a little bit. Some of these, like Uber's just getting destroyed, down 5% on the day. I know Jason Calacanis is big on that one. I think that's not smart. It looks like Similar now is flat on the day, down about 0.1%. It looks like Hood is down almost 2%. It looks like GME is about flat. Palantir is down almost 2%. ArcG's down 0.85. Somebody asked earlier if I would dial into more ArcG because the calls are looking so cheap. Yes, I've said that before. I am looking to get into January 2027 and add more of a position there. I do have some already, and I'll probably add more, but I'm not so interested right now. He's anti-Saylor. Yeah, Jason's anti-Saylor too. But I'm not so interested now. I want my Bitcoin treasury companies to take off probably first, and then I'll start to exit a little bit of that, and then I'll be dialing in to again like ArcG, Tesla, maybe ARGT, my Argentinian fund. I'll be dialing into many other things. Maybe a little TLT eventually. That's up 0.53% on the day. I'm just not interested. TLT is more of a safety mechanism for me if I believe that our economy's our government's on the right track. I'm not even confident our government's going to get on the right track. That's disappearing by seeing what Congress is doing, by seeing just some of the stuff with Trump, again, disincentivizing solar, but leaving the incentives for oil and these other things. I don't love it. I don't think it's the right move. And we're going to have to do a bunch of money printing. So I'm still not sold on TLT. But the plan is make money off of Bitcoin treasuries, diversify into other stuff, make money off of Bitcoin miners. I've sold none of it. I still have all of it. I have about 1.55 million in Bitcoin treasury companies between Saylor and MetaPlanet, and probably 1.6 million, including MicroStrategy. And then I've got well over 1 million in other Bitcoin mining companies, and then I've got all this other stuff that I'm invested into, like SMCI, ArcG, all this stuff. So I've got plenty of different asymmetric bets to the upside that I will diversify into, but I'm looking to make that money first, and I'm willing to hold off and wait on it because I have such a high conviction in MetaPlanet. And just Bitcoin as a whole right now. I think this is the perfect time to be in it, guys. Again, if we look over here, if we look at the Bitcoin treasury stuff, if we just look at the company growth, and then also you look at Bitcoin on exchanges, I don't know where I have that measure. Maybe over here. Let me see. Let me close this. Yeah, Bitcoin exchange reserve is falling off a cliff, guys. Continually, every day. Just more so disappearing like nothing we've ever seen before. So this rapid decline Bitcoin on exchanges, along with all the companies gobbling it up, along with governments getting ready to gobble it up. Some are already starting, along with private companies, along with pensions, along with ETFs. All this, you got less available, and you've got more consumption, and then you've got global liquidity expanding. And I'm really excited about where we're headed next. So I hope you guys are too. I'm probably done for the day. This is already 9:30, so I made this one a long one today. Let's jam out to some Saylor 100K watch party. And again, I might do a video tomorrow. We'll see. I'm probably going to try to do one, but I'll let you guys know in the morning to be safe. And then if nothing else, I'll see you guys probably next Friday as I have a week off. So peace out. Thank you for sticking around to the end if you're still here. And I will talk to you guys later.
Going up, going up. Going up, going up. Going up, going up. So if you consider digital property, that's $100 to $200 trillion addressable market. So I would think it goes from 10 trillion to 100 trillion as people start to think of it as digital property. 500,000, right? That's a $10 trillion. 5 million, that's a $100 trillion asset. Yeah, I think it keeps going up, 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 going up forever, going up forever. Going up, going up. Missouri's looking to go to 10 billion points. Going up, going up. Going up, going up. Going up, going up. Going up, going up. Gold was that low frequency money. Property is a mid frequency money, but when I start to program it faster, it starts to look like digital energy.